Chapter 794. The reason why they believed Yitsong's words was because from what he had said, they could tell that he already knew about the outside world, and he definitely knew more than them. In fact, it was possible that he had connections with the outside factions. If what Yitsong said was true, then with how terrifying that organization was, how could an ordinary team be so powerful? If a few more teams came, would the dark demon world be at peace? Although he still had some doubts, he would rather believe it at this moment. If that organization was real, then the few of them would be foolish enough to oppose them. In the end, the organization could send out a few small teams, and they would be able to destroy them like they had destroyed the Vile dynasty. The countless chains that had stretched out from the seal had almost sealed them as well. Everyone could sense how terrifying it was, so they naturally did not want to undo the seal. However, facing Yitsong, who had borrowed power from the outside world, their expressions were quite unsightly. They felt wariness, disgust, and anger. Suddenly, a peerlessly beautiful woman said, "You also relied on the organization's power to obtain the Night Dynasty overnight, right?" Hearing this, everyone understood why Yitsong had plotted to take over the Night Dynasty overnight. If he had the support of that organization, this would not have been a problem at all. Yitsong lightly smiled and did not reply. The peerlessly beautiful woman coldly harumphed, "I hope you understand your identity and race. If you dare to do anything to harm the dark demon world, we'll kill you even if we have to die." After saying this, the woman turned into a ray of light and shot off into the horizon, and the others also left. They could only end things here, mainly because they feared the power behind Yitsong. Moreover, it was the Vile dynasty who had attacked the Night dynasty first, so they could not do anything about it. They could only warn Yitsong to remember his identity and not to be a traitor or a dog that helped others harm the dark demon world. Yitsong lightly laughed and did not mind their words. He was someone from the human world, so how could this be considered a traitor? Following this, Yitsong returned to the banquet. Back at the Qin Empire, the Qin Empire's gains were quite shocking. It had obtained 203 cities in one go, and it had even obtained a capital city, completing the requirements for leveling up to a royal city. Adding on the EXP from before, it was already halfway to leveling up. Now, as long as the capital was upgraded by 2 levels, the Qin Empire could be restored. It would no longer be an empty name, but a real empire. He now had 3 things to do: rebuild the Demon King city, refine the nation armament, and repair the desolate blood mask. Zhao Fu thought about the first matter and decided to deal with it later. He would deal with the second matter first, which was the Dark Demon World's residents and the Vile Dynasty's women. Zhao Fu had already gathered these 2 things. Now that the Night Dynasty had 60 million indigenous residents, it would not be a problem to have 100,000 less residents. Secondly, when Zhao Fu destroyed the Ugur dynasty, he had captured more than 20 women. Among them were Ugur's mother, a few concubines, and a few princesses. He had also captured a few concubines from other branches of the family, as well as a few of Ugur's women. The women who had tried to seduce Zhao Fu were also captured by Zhao Fu. However, they no longer had flirtatious looks on their faces and instead had looks of hatred. Zhao Fu first made these women concubines. In actuality, capturing these women was the easiest way to obtain Phoenix Chi. Not only did he capture a lot of them, but they all had a lot of Phoenix Chi. After making them concubines, countless traces of golden Phoenix Chi flowed out of their bodies and were absorbed by the Emperor Phoenix statue. Now, the Emperor Phoenix statue was 400 meters tall and gave off a powerful aura. It now had a portion of the power of a nation armament. Zhao Fu brought them to the refining building, which was a place to refine nation armaments. It was a 3-story wooden building that was even bigger than before. The decorations were much more extravagant, and the floor was covered with warm jade that gave off heat. After bringing them in, indescribable sounds could be heard. Zhao Fu put on his clothes and brought the Demon King ancestral blade, which was no longer struggling, to the heaven and earth refining formation. This was the second nation armament that Qin had refined, so Zhao Fu felt quite happy. Zhao Fu placed the Demon King ancestral blade into the magic formation and looked at by Qi and the others. The others nodded and sent the massive flood of fate into the magic formation. The magic formation absorbed the fate and gave off a faint light. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as a 10-colored pillar of light rushed into the clouds. Countless traces of heaven and earth fate flooded in, causing a wild gale to blow and the sky to darken. Countless traces of fate continuously condensed and compressed, and an extremely terrifying aura spread out from the sky. The entire northern side of the Midland continent once again felt this terrifying power. However, after thinking about it, they realized who had caused this, and they were not too surprised. After all, the northern side was quite used to this. In the end, the countless traces of fate continuously condensed and compressed, forming a 100-meter-wide four-legged cauldron that gave off a 10-colored light. This cauldron gave off the might of the heavens and earth, and it was incredibly terrifying and could cause people to tremble. Following this, everyone continued to send fate into the magic formation. The 10-colored cauldron trembled and a formless karmic flame that gave off a world-burning temperature rose up, and it started to roast the Demon King ancestral blade. As the Demon King ancestral blade was roasted, it started to go through changes. All of the vile dynasty's aura was stripped away, and it started to give off a faint demonic light, giving off a shocking aura. At that moment, the 100,000 dark demon residents knelt on the ground, and Qin's fate rose up from the ground and flowed into the 10-colored cauldron. The formless karmic flame absorbed Qin's fate and turned into black flames, and the Demon King ancestral blade also absorbed Qin's fate. Time gradually passed, and the 10-colored cauldron, which gave off immense might, turned into countless traces of fate and dissipated. A saber giving off boundless soul-devouring demonic light appeared in the sky, and its terrifying power caused countless people to feel fear. At that moment, the demonic saber slowly descended from the sky and floated in the air above the magic formation. Its appearance had not changed much, and it was still as long and thin as before. It gave off dense demonic qi, but there were now many Qin characters on the saber, which were Xiaozhuan characters. Apart from the demonic intent, destruction, and darkness, the demonic saber's aura also gave off a trace of mysteriousness and dignity. It now had a trace of mysteriousness and dignity, and it was now Great Qin's nation armament. Zhao Fu named it the Qin demonic saber. This saber's source was demonic qi, and it could not be changed. Even though it had become Qin's nation armament, its demonic qi did not decrease, and it fused with Qin's killing aura, making it even more powerful than before. Chapter 795. This trace of source energy was a rainbow-colored mote of light that was as big as a mung bean. Even though it was quite small, the power it gave off was incredibly terrifying, and it was even more powerful than 1,000 destruction crystals combined. This was how terrifying source energy was. However, this trace of source energy was not for Zhao Fu but for the world-cleansing butterfly. It was an insect egg that Zhao Fu had obtained after becoming the world protector. Ever since he had obtained the insect egg, it had not shown any signs of hatching, and Zhao Fu had used all sorts of spirit medicines to catalyze it. However, the effects were incredibly weak, to the point that they were almost non-existent. After all, the world-cleansing butterfly was a world beast, and there were not many things that could be used in a world. Ordinary spirit medicines were naturally useless against it. Zhao Fu placed the demon saber in the city hall and allowed it to be nourished by Qin's fate. Only then did he take out the insect egg and slowly fuse a trace of source energy into it. Immediately, Zhao Fu felt a powerful aura of life coming out from the insect egg, and the weather changed as countless traces of heaven and earth spirit qi madly gathered and was absorbed by the insect egg. The insect egg on the table gave off a faint rainbow-colored light and floated in the air. As it absorbed more and more heaven and earth spirit chi, the aura it gave off became more and more terrifying. The entire world seemed to fall silent, and all of China's creatures, whether they were tigers, lions, or wolves, obediently lay on the ground. They instinctively felt a wave of terror, and even the wind stopped blowing and the light seemed to freeze. At that moment, the human world's legatees sensed this power, and they all looked towards Qin's direction. At this moment, a small figure wriggled inside the egg floating in midair. Then, a small black head popped out and looked around curiously. Then, as if discovering that there was no danger, its entire body popped out. The rainbow-colored eggshell automatically turned into dust, and a black, chubby little bug that was as long as a finger hovered in the air. The little worm also felt Zhao Fu's aura and happily flew in front of Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu immediately felt a consciousness trying to communicate with him. However, because the little bug had just been born, it didn't know anything and couldn't express itself clearly. Zhao Fu couldn't understand it, but he could feel its happiness and joy, as well as its closeness to him. Zhao Fu smiled and took out a stage 5 spirit pill that he had bought in the outside world and placed it in front of the little fellow. The little fellow swallowed it in one gulp before looking at Zhao Fu with its round black eyes, looking quite happy and wanting more. Following this, Zhao Fu took out 10 or so stage 5 spirit pills, and the black bug swallowed them all. Only then did it feel full and lazily burrow into Zhao Fu's clothes. Now that the matter of the world-cleansing butterfly had been resolved, it was time to see how Zhao Fu would raise it. The world-cleansing butterfly's potential was definitely greater than the Sky Desolation Azure Dragon's, and it would also be stronger than the Sky Desolation Azure Dragon in the future. However, raising it would be more difficult. If an ordinary level 1 beast swallowed a level 5 spirit pill, it would immediately explode and die. However, the little bug had to eat more than a dozen of them before it was full. In the future, it would need to be fed with all sorts of treasures in order to grow. Zhao Fu thought about it and gave the bug a name. He used its original name and named it Cleansing Butterfly. After giving it a name, Zhao Fu reached out and pulled it out from under his clothes, calling it a few times in a low voice. The little bug did not understand the meaning of this name, but towards Zhao Fu's intimacy, it very quickly began to respond. After teasing it a little more, Zhao Fu put it back into his clothes. Because it was just born, the butterfly was still relatively sleepy. The 20 or so women in the refinement tower recovered some of their strength, but their faces were still red. At this moment, a beautiful woman said, "Empress, it's time for you to leave. Should we agree to what he said?" Hearing her words, a young woman immediately said with tears in her eyes, "We definitely won't submit to him, and he's a human. In the future, he'll be our dark demon race's enemy. Our vile dynasty was destroyed by him, so we'd rather die than submit to him." A knowledgeable woman sighed and said, "How could it be so easy to die? Now that we have restrictions placed on our bodies, it is impossible to die even if we want to. Moreover, our bodies have just been taken by him. We don't even have the slightest ability to resist. In actuality, I feel that submitting to him isn't a bad idea either. Now that things have come to this, we can't change anything. Also, he's so powerful. This is the first time I've felt so happy," a lewd woman said. Hearing this, many of the women's faces became red and they glared at her. She knew that she could not retort, so she lightly harumphed and continued to rest on the warm jade. The one who had been called the Empress was a cold-looking woman. She was Ugr's mother, and after thinking for a while, she said, "Now that the vile dynasty has been destroyed, this is something that cannot be changed. We need to think about our future. If we anger him, he won't kill us, but he'll do everything he can to torture us. Do you want to suffer that kind of pain that is worse than death? Moreover, having the vile dynasty city in our hands is better than having it in someone else's hands. That way, we'll have a foothold in Qin. The women fell silent. Thinking about the pain that was worse than death, none of them wanted to endure it. They calmed down and thought about what they should do in the future. In the end, they could only helplessly compromise and look at the princesses. They all had pure Vile dynasty bloodlines, so they were the most suitable city lord. Ling Er, your talent is the highest and your bloodline is the purest, so he'll most likely make you the city lord. What do you think? The empress said to one of the women. This woman was the woman who had tried to seduce Zhao Fu to stall for time. Her expression was cold as she thought to herself. The other women did not say anything and silently waited for her reply. They would have to rely on her in the future, and without her help, their fates would be quite pitiful. In the end, the woman called Erling nodded and agreed, causing the other women to let out a sigh of relief. Zhao Fu also received news that they had agreed to his request. In actuality, Zhao Fu could choose any dark demon person to be the city lord of an ordinary city. However, the Vile Dynasty city was one of the 3 capital cities of Qin, so Zhao Fu had to make sure that the Vile Dynasty city could unleash its true power. Its true power could only be unleashed by those with the Vile Dynasty bloodline. Relatively speaking, it would be easier to subdue women because of their relationship with Zhao Fu. However, if a man found out that his sisters and family had been humiliated by Zhao Fu, he would hate Zhao Fu to death, and it would be impossible for him to be loyal. Chapter 796. Zhao Fu returned to the refining tower and looked at the woman called Hateful Spirit, feeling quite surprised. Hateful Spirit's expression was cold as she turned her head to the side. Zhao Fu did not mind her attitude, and he took her away from Xianying City to the nearby Qing province, where he rebuilt the Demon King City. Following this, he made Hateful Spirit the city lord and planted a 6 desires demonic seed in her body. Since he had made her the city lord, Zhao Fu naturally wanted to completely control her. After dealing with another matter, Zhao Fu ordered his people to start preparing for the third matter, which was to restore the Desolate Blood Mask. Before, everyone had thought that the Desolate Blood Shard was a nation armament shard, and the information on it had said that it was a nation armament shard. However, after Tuoba Qing's bloodline had awakened, the Golden Dragon had said that it was not a nation armament but something that surpassed Emperor Heaven armaments. Zhao Fu did not know what was going on, but perhaps after restoring it, he would be able to obtain some information about it. As such, he quickly called Tuoba Qing over. Tuoba Qing had blood-red hair and eyes, making her look incredibly devilishly beautiful. However, her personality was still quite pure and cheerful, and after hearing that the Desolate Blood Mask was going to be restored, she felt quite happy. After all, this Desolate Blood Mask felt quite familiar to her. Repairing the Desolate Blood Mask was not the same as refining a nation armament, but it required the heaven and earth refining formation to repair it. First was blood. It required the blood of at least 100,000 people, and it had to be blood related to Tuoba Qing's bloodline. After such a long time, many of the villages and cities had spawned enough people. Because Zhao Fu had made Tuoba Qing the city lord, the people spawned from her would be village chiefs. This way, the number of people spawned was quite fast, and there were now 180,000 people. Zhao Fu ordered his people to gather the 180,000 people together and give them a bit of blood. Zhao Fu collected the blood, and even though he needed at least 100,000 people's blood, the more the better. After collecting the blood, Zhao Fu took out the 4 desolate blood shards and brought Tuoba Qing to the heaven and earth refining formation. This time, he was not going to use the Great World refining but the blood refining. Zhao Fu first placed the 4 desolate blood mask shards at the center of the magic formation and then filled the area with buckets of blood. Zhao Fu told Tuoba Qing how to refine the desolate blood mask and had her repair it according to her own method. Tuoba Qing had to do this by herself, and Zhao Fu could not help her. After hearing Zhao Fu's words, Tuoba Qing earnestly nodded and came to the side of the magic formation. She activated the heaven and earth refining formation, and the energy stones within the jade troughs turned into dust. The massive magic formation started to activate, and the 4 desolate blood shards at the center were lifted up by a formless energy. At that moment, Tuoba Ching's expression became serious as she performed hand seals, her body continuously giving off a blood-red aura. Following this, she stretched out a snow-white hand and lightly cried out towards the 4 shards floating in the air. The boundless blood in the buckets seemed to be controlled by a formless energy and flowed towards the 4 shards, forming a 10-meter-wide orb of blood. Tuoba Ching took out a sharp blade and slashed her wrist, causing blood to flow out of the wound and be controlled by a formless energy into the orb of blood. Immediately, the orb of blood gave off an intense blood-red light, and a terrifying power spread out like a flood. The sky seemed to darken, and it was a pure darkness without a trace of light. It was so deep that it could cause anyone to feel fear. Suddenly, the orb of blood gave off a terrifying aura as it turned into a ray of light and shot into the sky, giving off boundless blood-red light like a blood-red sun. "Husband, I can't control it anymore." Tuoba Ching's expression fell as she found that she could no longer control the orb of blood, and she hurriedly cried out to Zhao Fu. However, just as Zhao Fu was about to do something, a blood-red light covered Tuoba Ching, and Tuoba Ching's body was dragged into the blood-red sun in the sky. In an instant, the sun in the sky expanded to 1,000 meters, and boundless blinding blood-red light spread out. Zhao Fu's expression fell. This situation had completely gone out of his control. Zhao Fu looked at the blood-red sun in the sky and wanted to stop it when the golden dragon suddenly said, "Don't do anything." Hearing this, Zhao Fu could only stop and ask anxiously, "Just what's going on?" The golden dragon replied, "I said before that her identity is not simple, and I don't know why something like this has happened. However, I can sense that the world's source energy is gathering. This isn't the power of the human world, but the true heaven-awakened world's source energy. With your current strength, you won't be able to stop it at all, and you'll die as soon as you touch it." The entire human world darkened. It was a darkness so dark that one could not even see their own fingers in front of them. The blood-red sun in the sky also expanded to 10,000 meters, truly illuminating the world. Countless people stared at the blood-red sun in shock as an indescribable might descended on the world. Countless creatures felt their bodies sink, and it was as if their hearts were being gripped by a pair of massive hands, making it difficult for them to breathe. Within the blood-red sun, Tuoba Ching fell unconscious, and the 4 shards gave off intense light as they slowly came together and fused into a complete mask. This mask seemed to be made of wood and only had a pair of eyes. There were 2 intersecting blood-red marks on the mask, and it gave off an ancient aura. The mask automatically repaired itself and floated towards the unconscious Tuoba Ching before covering her face. Immediately, a pair of cold and terrifying blood-red eyes opened, and a shocking explosion sounded out as the blood-red sun seemed to explode, blinding everyone. An extremely terrifying aura instantly spread out, sweeping through everything in the world. At that moment, the experts in the surrounding dozens of worlds sensed something, and their expressions became serious as they looked in the direction of the human world. In the boundless void at the center of the heaven-awakened world, there were 8 crystals floating in the air. These crystals were incredibly big, and they couldn't even be described as mountains at all. From a distance, one couldn't even see them clearly. Suddenly, one of the blood-red crystals slightly trembled, and immediately, the weather at the center of the heaven-awakened world changed. The sun and moon dimmed, mountains and rivers flowed in reverse, time and space froze, and yin and yang reversed. Countless old monsters who had been in slumber for tens of thousands of years suddenly opened their eyes at that moment. The terrifying power caused the heavens and earth to collapse and all living things to return to dust. All living beings felt terror under their might, and even true emperors could not help but tremble. At that moment, the massive blood-red crystal suddenly calmed down, and all abnormal signs disappeared as if they had never appeared. Zhao Fu could not help but gulp as he looked at that familiar yet unfamiliar girl in the sky, who seemed to reign above the heavens. The Origin race's power was not something that ordinary people could imagine. At that moment, Tuo Baqing's terrifying blood-red eyes slowly turned to Zhao Fu, causing Zhao Fu's hairs to stand on end. He felt as if his soul was being corroded by ice, and he could not help but tremble as an unprecedented fear flowed out from his heart. Chapter 797. Just as the golden dragon's voice sounded out, Zhao Fu quickly reacted. Just as he was about to move, Tuo Baqing stretched out a white finger towards Zhao Fu. Immediately, the heavens and earth seemed to dim as the world's source energy madly gathered, forming a finger of the heavenly Tao that crushed down on the entire world. Space instantly collapsed, and time and space became chaotic. Zhao Fu's body froze, and his heart started to beat rapidly in fear. Cold sweat appeared on his face, and he felt as if he could not use any of his power. Under that finger, Zhao Fu felt like an ant, and it was the first time he had felt the aura of death at such a close distance. Am I going to die? This was the only thought in Zhao Fu's mind. Any power would be useless against that finger, and Zhao Fu started to feel a trace of despair. Boom! The power of that finger was like a massive meteor crashing into the ground, resulting in a shocking explosion. The shockwave from the explosion instantly blasted out, and the ground in the surrounding 100 kilometers collapsed. All of the flowers, grass, trees, birds, and beasts were turned into nothingness. The terrifying power caused the heavens and earth to fall deathly silent. Tuo Baqing gave off an aura that reigned supreme over the entire world as she stood in the air like a godly spirit, her blood-red eyes coldly staring at the massive crater. Suddenly, a massive devilish blood-red star giving off boundless blood-red light and a shocking pressure gradually broke through the restrictions of the sky and descended into the world. The blood-red color started to spread, and in just an instant, the entire human world was dyed blood-red. The boundless aura that contained coldness, bloodlust, disaster, and savagery poured down like water from a heavenly river. Countless people looked incredibly shocked as they sensed how terrifying this aura was. They felt as if their souls were submerged in icy water, and they could not help but tremble. No matter if it was birds, beasts, or insects, they could only lie on the ground in despair and terror, not even daring to cry out. The entire world fell deathly silent. This terrifying aura flooded into the fish-scale world through the massive rift. Immediately, all of the fish-scale people felt a chill run through their bodies, causing them to feel a stabbing pain. They could not help but surface, and through the rift, they were shocked to find that the human world had become a blood-red world. That terrifying aura had come from the human world. What had happened to the human world? Everyone in the human world looked at the descending blood-red planet in shock, and a few legatees hurried over. They could sense that something big had happened to Qin. Cough, cough, within the deathly silent crater, a few coughs sounded out as Zhao Fu slowly climbed up from the ground, a trace of blood at his lips. His body was covered by boundless blood-red starlight, and it was as if he was in a sea of starlight. This was the power of the Chaos Imperial Star. Tuo Baqing coldly looked at all of this, and Zhao Fu raised his head and looked at her. He found that the young woman in front of him had become a completely different person. She was no longer as bright and cheerful as before, and she was instead filled with coldness and supreme power. Ah! Zhao Fu hysterically roared as he used all of his power. No matter if it was his emperor's power, his City Lord Seal's power, or the other City Lord Seal's power, he exploded out with everything he had. A world-shaking power exploded out from Zhao Fu's body, causing berserk gales to sweep out in the surrounding 10,000 kilometers. Blood flowed out of Zhao Fu's left eye, and the golden chains in his 4 pupils continuously spun and gradually became blood-red. Heaven and earth absolute seal! Zhao Fu roared as he slammed his palms against the ground, causing the ground to collapse. Countless chains containing immense force shot out from the ground towards Tuo Baqing. It was impossible to tell how many there were, but it was impossible to tell if there were millions or tens of millions of them. Tuo Baqing's expression finally changed, and she stretched out a hand before vigorously grabbing at the air and twisting it. The space in front of her seemed to twist, forming a vortex, and countless chains shot out of the vortex, breaking one by one. Zhao Fu's terrifying eyes coldly looked at Tuo Baqing, and he once again pressed his hands against the ground, causing a few rays of blood-red light to shoot into the ground. Clang, clang, clang. Suddenly, tens of thousands of chains shot out from the air behind Tuo Baqing, giving off terrifying power as they shot towards Tuo Baqing. Tuo Baqing slightly tilted her head, and her blood-red pupils constricted as a massive wave of power flowed out, once again shattering the countless chains. Arg! Zhao Fu once again roared, looking quite savage as an even more powerful wave of power flowed out. Countless blood-red arcs of lightning flashed around him, and the ground once again cracked. Clang, 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 the sound of countless chains rang out as countless chains stretched out from the air around Tuo Baqing, giving off immense power as they shot towards Tuo Baqing. Tuo Baqing once again stretched out a hand and clasped her hands together. A blood-red crystal appeared on her palm, and a blood-red energy barrier with countless cloud-like inscriptions floated out. Clang, clang, clang. Under Zhao Fu's control, the chains changed their direction and targeted the blood-red energy barrier. The chains wrapped around the blood-red energy barrier, tightly binding it. More and more chains appeared, and they became larger and larger, gradually forming a 100-meter wide ball of chains in the sky. This scene was incredibly shocking, and it was something that ordinary people would never be able to see. The countless chains not only bound the blood-red energy barrier, but they also temporarily sealed Tuo Baqing's terrifying aura. Swish, 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 another 1,000 chains shot out from the ground, reaching into the ball of chains in the sky before slowly pulling it towards the ground. Only by dragging it into the sealed space underground would the sealing be successful. The ball of chains had a powerful resistance, and it was incredibly strenuous for Zhao Fu to slowly pull it towards the ground. Suddenly, Zhao Fu felt that the ball of chains had lost its ability to resist, but he was not in a hurry to rejoice. A blood-red sword light slashed out from the ball of chains, destroying countless chains as the sword light continued to tear through the sky. In the next second, Tuo Baqing's figure appeared in front of Zhao Fu, and she clenched her right hand into a fist as she punched Zhao Fu's chest. Zhao Fu's body quickly flew back and smashed through countless boulders before stopping. Who knew how many bones in his chest had been broken, and his body was a bloody mess. After receiving this attack, Zhao Fu coughed up a mouthful of blood, and he did not even have the strength to crawl up. By now, Tuo Baqing had already appeared in front of Zhao Fu and grabbed Zhao Fu's throat, lifting him up. She coldly looked at Zhao Fu as she started to apply force. Zhao Fu felt more and more pain in his neck, and it felt as if a massive force was squeezing it. It felt as if it was going to break, and he could barely breathe. Am I going to die at the hands of my own woman? Chapter 798. Husband, you're so weak, Tuo Baqing suddenly said as she grabbed Zhao Fu's throat and coldly looked at Zhao Fu with her blood-red eyes. Zhao Fu's heart trembled, and he looked at Tuo Baqing in confusion. His mind was in chaos, and he did not understand what was going on. Tuo Baqing seemed to have her memories from before, but it was as if she was a completely different person and wanted to kill him. Zhao Fu did not know what to say, and he looked at the cold Tuo Baqing with a complicated gaze. He liked the cheerful and beautiful Tuo Baqing from before even more, but the Tuo Baqing from before had disappeared, and he was powerless to change anything. If only I had more power, I would be able to change everything and return everything to how it was before. However, I'm simply too weak, and I'm like a lowly ant. Suddenly, Zhao Fu felt as if his soul had fallen into a boundless demon abyss, and countless amounts of blood-red water covered him. His consciousness gradually became hazy before disappearing and turning into chaos. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out as the Chaos Imperial star in the sky gave off an even more intense blood-red light, seeming to tear through the sky. The star started to spin in the sky, and a terrifying power exploded out from Zhao Fu's body as a black and blood-red aura flame burst forth from his body. Tuo Baqing, who had been holding on to Zhao Fu's throat, felt her expression fall as her body was forced back a few meters by this power. Zhao Fu's body floated in the air as the black and blood-red aura flame continuously flickered around him, and his massive aura swept out like a wild gale. The whites of his eyes seemed to be dyed black, and his pupils did not change. However, with the black whites of his eyes, he looked even more evil than before. 2 fangs grew out of his mouth, and his ears became sharper. 2 short horns grew out of his head, and his hands became sharp claws. Now, Zhao Fu's aura seemed to have become a completely different person. It was filled with coldness, bloodlust, disaster, savagery, and evil, just like the Chaos Imperial star. Tuo Baqing looked at Zhao Fu, and her expression became serious. She grabbed at the air, and a blood-red sword condensed. Zhao Fu tilted his head back and looked at Tuo Baqing with his terrifying eyes. He gave a trace of a savage and evil smile, causing Tuo Baqing's heart to feel a chill. Shwa! Zhao Fu's body instantly disappeared and reappeared in front of Tuo Baqing. He grabbed at the air, and a black and blood-red sword condensed. Zhao Fu gripped the sword and slashed horizontally towards Tuo Baqing with enough power to slash apart the heavens. Tuo Baqing's gaze became cold as she used her full strength. An even greater power flowed out as her sword gave off terrifying power as it slashed towards Zhao Fu. Boom! The 2 swords gave off shocking power as they collided, resulting in a massive explosion. A shockwave spread out like a wave of light, and the ground in the surrounding 1,000 meters instantly collapsed. Boom! Boom! Booming sounds rang out continuously as the 2 of them engaged in an intense battle. Countless sword lights slashed out and collided, causing gusts of violent wind to wreak havoc in the surroundings. Sand and rocks were sent flying and trees were destroyed. It was as if a catastrophe had descended. Gotcha! Zhao Fu gave a monstrous laugh as his sword gave off a massive wave of sword qi that seemed to cover the heavens and earth as it flooded towards Tuo Baqing, sending her flying hundreds of meters. A trace of blood leaked out of Tuo Baqing's mouth, and her expression became savage as she raised her hand, causing countless traces of blood-red qi to fly into the sky. The sky was torn apart as a massive, coarse hand containing boundless power stretched out and pressed down towards Zhao Fu. It was as if countless mountains were weighing down on Zhao Fu's body, instantly pressing Zhao Fu into the ground. The massive hand did not disappear, and it continued to press Zhao Fu into the ground, leaving a massive handprint in the ground. Rumble, the ground started to tremble as massive stone pillars rose up from the ground, giving off a sealing power. It was as if Tuo Baqing wanted to seal Zhao Fu. The blood-red light from the Chaos Imperial star became even more intense, making it look like a blood-red sun. The cold and devilish aura became even stronger, and countless black and blood-red arcs of lightning continuously flashed below the massive hand. Shing! A clear sword hum sounded out as a shocking sword light slashed out, slashing the massive hand in half. Zhao Fu's body was covered in black and blood-red lightning as he struggled free, and he ferociously rushed at Tuo Baqing. Tuo Baqing raised her blood-red sword, causing countless traces of sword qi to flow out, forming a dragon of sword qi. Tuo Baqing slashed out, and the dragon roared as it gave off a boundless and sharp aura as it slammed towards Zhao Fu, seeming as if it could pierce through the sky. Zhao Fu did not feel any fear at all, and he gave a savage smile as he gripped his sword with both hands and slashed out with all of his strength. A massive sword light split the dragon of sword chi in half, and the massive sword light continued towards Tuoba-Ching. Tuoba-Ching once again stretched out her hand, causing a blood-red energy barrier to appear. The massive sword light slammed into it, causing cracking sounds to ring out and countless cracks to appear, but it was able to block Zhao Fu's attack. However, Zhao Fu's body suddenly blurred as he disappeared and reappeared behind Tuoba-Ching, his sharp claws instantly piercing through the cracked energy barrier. Tuoba-Ching was given a big fright, and even though she used her power to defend, she was still sent flying by Zhao Fu, causing her to cough up a mouthful of blood. After crashing to the ground, Tuoba-Ching lightly laughed as she crawled up and said, "Husband, today, I'll show you what the human race's power is. Today, I'll show you what the human race's power is." Suddenly, the heavens and earth once again fell silent as figures giving off peerless auras appeared. These figures were all illusory, and even though they were quite blurry, they all had different appearances and auras. There were men and women, old and young. After these illusory figures appeared, they stepped out and entered Tuoba-Ching's body. Immediately, a monstrous power spread out from Tuoba-Ching's body, and it was hundreds of times more terrifying than before. Even though Zhao Fu had lost consciousness, he could still feel a wave of terror. Arg! Zhao Fu continuously roared as he unleashed all of his power. The blood-red light that the Chaos Imperial Star gave off seemed to be corporeal, and it gave off world-destroying power. Boom! The Chaos Imperial Star sent down a brilliant pillar of light that landed on Zhao Fu's body. Countless black and blood-red arcs of lightning rampaged around him, causing the ground to continuously crumble as an even more powerful aura spread out from Zhao Fu's body. Suddenly, a figure appeared within the pillar of light, grabbed Zhao Fu's head, and smashed it against the ground. A massive explosion rang out and the ground was lifted up by shock waves before collapsing into nothingness in midair. Dust scattered and a 1,000-meter-wide crater appeared on the ground. At the center of the crater, Tuoba-Ching pressed Zhao Fu's head against the ground. A few traces of blood leaked out of Zhao Fu's head, and his aura became incredibly weak as he lay on the ground, completely powerless. "Husband, with your strength, you were able to force me to use my human race's power. I can see your potential, and I acknowledge you." Chapter 799. After picking up Zhao Fu's dying body, Tuoba-Ching stretched out her hand and placed it between Zhao Fu's eyebrows. A blood-red rune came out of Tuoba-Ching's palm and entered between Zhao Fu's eyebrows, and a powerful wave of life force instantly healed Zhao Fu's injuries. Zhao Fu's horns and fangs gradually disappeared, and the Chaos Imperial Star once again disappeared, and everything returned to normal. At that moment, Zhao Fu's consciousness returned, and he weakly opened his eyes. Looking at Tuoba-Ching in front of him, he was shocked at first, but when he saw the gentleness in her eyes, he relaxed and weakly called out, "Lil Ching." Tuoba-Ching lightly smiled and nodded, revealing that warm smile from before, and she said apologetically, "I'm sorry, husband. I just recovered my memories, and I didn't think that I would become your woman or do those shameful things with you, so I wanted to kill you and was a bit heavy-handed." Zhao Fu didn't quite understand Tuoba-Ching's current state, and his mind was in chaos. Tuoba-Ching seemed to have returned to her original appearance, but he understood what she had just done. Hearing her apologetic tone, Zhao Fu could only bitterly smile. The Origin race's power was not something he could resist, and he understood why the Golden Dragon viewed the Origin race with such great importance and fear. "Husband, are you not going to forgive me?" Seeing Zhao Fu bitterly smile, Tuoba-Ching felt quite apologetic and blamed herself. She had not been able to control that state just then, and she had indeed become a completely different person. Zhao Fu lightly smiled and shook his head, saying, "I was just beaten up by you. I can accept that." Tuoba-Ching's face became slightly red, and she smiled at Zhao Fu before thinking of something and saying, "Husband, I've planted an origin mark in your body so that you'll have a chance of obtaining an origin bloodline. I'll leave an origin mark in your body so that you'll have a chance of controlling an origin bloodline. Also, I'll be leaving now, so make sure to take care of Wu Qian and the others." Hearing this, Zhao Fu somewhat expected this, but he couldn't help but ask, "Do you really have to leave?" Tuoba Qing lightly nodded and said, "I've fully recovered my memories, and thank you for helping me repair the desolate blood mask. If I continue to stay here, some people will notice this place and bring disaster to the human world, so I have to leave. At the same time, I also want to leave. There are many things that I need to do after I recover my memories, and I want to find a way to recover my strength. Right now, my strength is less than 1% of before, so I need to recover as quickly as possible." However, thinking about Tuoba Qing, who was about to leave, Zhao Fu couldn't help but sigh sorrowfully. Tuoba Qing shyly kissed Zhao Fu on the cheek and comforted him, saying, "Husband, if we have the chance, we'll meet again in the future. If you're strong enough, I'll stay by your side, so make sure you continue to work hard." Zhao Fu could only bitterly smile and nod before saying goodbye to Tuoba Qing. He waved his hand, causing the space around him to tear apart like a piece of paper, and Tuoba Qing disappeared, leaving Zhao Fu standing there. The golden dragon looked at Tuoba Qing as she left and couldn't help but exclaim in delight, "Zhao Fu, you've hit the jackpot." Back then, even my Heaven Murder Empire's imperial clan was unable to obtain such a mark. Zhao Fu felt quite surprised and asked, "Is an origin mark that important?" The golden dragon giggled as he replied, "Of course, it's something that countless top-tier people dream of obtaining. With it, it's possible to advance to an origin bloodline. Normally, sacred heavenly bloodlines are the limit of all races, and they can't advance to an origin bloodline until they die of old age. However, the origin mark is extremely important to the origin race, as it is one of their origins. Moreover, they can only split it once and give it to someone else. You saw it too, right? In front of the origin race's power, a sacred heavenly bloodline is like a 3-year-old child, and a sovereign bloodline is trash." Thinking about that power that could cause one to despair, Zhao Fu could not help but sigh. Back then, even though he had given his body to the Chaos Imperial Star to maximize its power, he had still been instantly killed by Tuoba Qing, who had used her human race's power. By now, the other generals had arrived. They had not been able to get close to the terrifying shockwaves, and only after the battle had calmed down did they hurry over. Seeing the devastation, they were naturally incredibly shocked and worried. However, seeing that Zhao Fu was fine, they let out a sigh of relief. Wang Jian stepped forwards and cupped his hands as he asked caringly, "Your Majesty, are you all right? Are you all right? Are your injuries serious?" Also, concubine Qing. Zhao Fu turned to look at the other generals and lightly shook his head as he said, "I'm fine. Also, concubine Qing's matter is a secret of Qin City, and no one is allowed to talk about her. Anyone who disobeys will be severely punished." Now, Zhao Fu understood how dangerous Tuoba Qing's identity was, so he naturally had to keep her identity a secret in order to avoid any unnecessary trouble. At that moment, another commander came to report that a few legatees wanted to see Zhao Fu. They had sensed the increasingly terrifying aura coming from Qin City, and they thought that something big had happened. As such, they hurried over, but when they flew over the Great Wall, they were stopped by the generals. Now that everything had been dealt with, they were a bit late. Zhao Fu nodded and ordered people to bring them to the Qin Palace. Seeing the majestic palace, the legatees could not help but feel shocked. They were still very far away from establishing a kingdom, so it was impossible for them to do so. Now that Qin City had established a palace, didn't that mean that they were going to establish a kingdom? Thinking about this, they became even more shocked. After coming to the Grand Palace, Zhao Fu's face was pale as he asked, "What is it?" Seeing how pale and weak Zhao Fu's face was, Tina Pendragon was even more certain that something had happened in Great Qin, and she asked, "Great Qin's legatee?" Tina Pendragon asked, "Emperor, what was that abnormal sign just then?" Of course, Zhao Fu could not tell them, so he only smiled and replied that it was just a small incident. Of course, the legatees did not believe him. The closer they got to Qin City, the more they could sense that destructive power, causing their hearts to tremble. If it wasn't for the fact that it could cause great harm to the human world, they would not have dared to get any closer. However, it seemed that Qin City had resolved the situation, and if Zhao Fu did not want to say anything, they could not force him. In the end, they could only leave. At that moment, they observed Qin City's strength, and they were quite shocked. Qin City was indeed about to establish a kingdom, and Qin City would be the first kingdom in the human world. Chapter 800. A few days later, the spring wind blew and the sun was warm. The surroundings were filled with greenery, and it was now March. Spring had arrived in the Legacy Land. Zhao Fu had fully recovered from his injuries, and he had ordered people to refine the corpses of the generals. Zhao Fu gave the innate talent blood crystals to the people who had been with him for the longest time: Zhang Dahu, Xiao Jian, Daisy, and Old Logue. He would also give them Sar, Dok, and Chen Man's corpses after he obtained them. Now, Qin controlled 160 regions, including 1,112 great cities, 30 cities, 240 towns, and 22,489 villages. The total population had reached 570 million or so, and there were 80 million soldiers. There were 60 million Stage 1 soldiers, 2 million Stage 2 soldiers, 200,000 Stage 3 soldiers, 8,000 Stage 4 soldiers, and all of the generals had reached Stage 5. With Qin's current strength, Zhao Fu felt that it was time to do something. Before, Zhao Fu had been hesitant because the alliance was too powerful, but now, Zhao Fu felt that Qin's strength was enough. However, he still had to prepare for defense. If Qin showed his fangs again, he would attract too many enemies, so defense was the most important thing for Qin. Qin City was already a level 4 capital city, and it was only 2 levels away from establishing a kingdom. As such, Zhao Fu had to speed things up. He wanted to establish a kingdom as soon as possible so that the Qin Empire could once again appear in the world. Within the palace, all of the generals and ministers stood in rows on either side. There was a red carpet in the middle, and everything was made of ancient materials. Zhao Fu sat on his throne and gave off the aura of a king as he looked down at everyone and asked, "What do you all think about this battle?" Wei Liao stood out and smiled as he said, "Your Majesty, this minister has some thoughts. This time, Qin's target shouldn't be the cities near Qin City, but the cities further away. There are a few benefits to doing this. First, to maintain Qin's friendly image to the neighboring cities, the cities that had diplomatic relations with Qin would continue to treat them as friends. Secondly, Qin's powerful attack had undoubtedly put a great deal of pressure on many cities. If they saw Qin's current strength, they would probably choose to submit again. Thirdly, the regions that were attacked by Qin would definitely feel threatened and attack Qin on a large scale. There were many cities around Qin that had a good relationship with Qin. They would definitely attack these cities first. These cities only had 2 choices. One was to submit to Qin, and the other was to join the enemy. In fact, both choices were beneficial to Qin. First, it was best to join Qin. Second, if they wanted to join the enemy, and Qin treated them so well, if they chose to betray him, Qin could attack them from a righteous position. Hearing this, Zhao Fu thought about it seriously, nodded and asked, "Does anyone have a different opinion on General Wei's tactics?" The generals and ministers all agreed with Wei Liao's tactic. At that moment, Wang Jian stepped out and cupped his hands as he said, "Your Majesty, this subordinate has some suggestions. With Great Qin's current strength, it's still too weak to face the entire northern side. Even though we don't know how many cities will retaliate against us, It seems that we should prepare for the worst-case scenario. Zhao Fu looked at Great Qin and said, "This subordinate has some suggestions. Therefore, this subordinate doesn't support General Wei's view. This subordinate's idea is to conceal their identities and eliminate them one by one. We can also use General Wei's strategy of distant enemy, close friend. We must first construct a large number of transmission arrays and prepare everything. Then, we can quietly erase the regions one by one. We can't do too many of them, or else we'll attract the attention of countless cities. At the same time, it's best to choose regions that are far away to reduce the danger." After hearing Wang Jian's suggestion, Zhao Fu couldn't help but nod. Even though this method was more time-consuming and troublesome, and it wasn't as fast as Wei Liao's method, it was the safest and most careful method. "Your Majesty, when the two generals' tactics are exposed, Qin's defense is the most important thing. Once many cities attack, and Qin isn't prepared, they'll definitely break through," Sun Hanxiang said as she bowed. Zhao Fu replied seriously, "I know. I'll order people to set up large amounts of traps and defensive formations. What do you think of the two generals' tactics?" This time, everyone fell silent and started to think about the pros and cons of the two tactics. Zhao Fu also seriously thought about the two tactics. Bai Qi, dressed in white, stepped forwards and said in a low voice, "Your Majesty, this general feels that we can combine the two generals' tactics and make up for each other's weaknesses." "I feel that we can combine the two generals' tactics to make up for each other's weaknesses. General Wei's tactic is fast and can bring Great Qin the most benefits in a short period of time, but it's too dangerous. General Wang's tactic is safe and cautious, but its weakness is that it's slow and can be detected by some smart people. Great Qin is currently facing 3 cities. We can choose one direction and use General Wei's strategy to launch a sudden attack, and we can use Wang Jian's method to attack the remaining 2 directions. This will greatly reduce the pressure on Qin, and it will also reduce suspicions. After all, Qin is currently fighting with other factions, so he naturally doesn't have the time or energy to attack the other 2 directions. Qin can also spread the news and frame the other factions. At the same time, they would be able to reap benefits and rid themselves of suspicion. In fact, they would even be able to help the cities in both directions and deepen their relationship. That way, Great Qin would be able to focus on one direction. Zhao Fu couldn't help but laugh. This tactic was quite sinister, and he had never thought that Bai Qi would come up with such a tactic. However, anything that could kill enemies and win was a good tactic. After thinking about it for a while, Zhao Fu asked the others if there was anything they could add to Bai Qi's tactic. Following this, Zhao Fu decided to use Bai Qi's tactic. After making preparations, Qin didn't hide his identity and made sure everyone knew that it was Qin. Zhao Fu was attacking towards the east because the factions in that direction were stronger. They would be a tough nut to crack in the future, so it was best to deal with them as soon as possible. This time, Zhao Fu didn't send out his entire army, and he only planned to send out 800 city lords. In order to ensure safety, there were 20 city lords in a team. They weren't going to be a blitzkrieg, and they were going to construct a large number of teleportation channels to relocate a large number of people. This would take up a lot of time, and it would be good for Qin to let them know that it was Qin who had done this. Firstly, it would show off Qin's strength. Of course, this wasn't Qin's true strength, as he hadn't released the Wyverns and Corpse Soul Commanders yet. Secondly, it would be a cover for the other 2 sides to keep a low profile. Chapter 801. Bang! A massive explosion sounded out as a ray of light tore through the sky and shot into a city hall. A suffocating aura exploded out, and the city lord was immediately woken up. He rushed out of the room and looked at the terrifying figure in the sky with a serious expression. "I am Qin's legatee. Are you willing to submit to Qin?" The figure in the sky said in a dignified and domineering voice that could be heard throughout the entire city. "Moreover, A powerful might weighed down on the city lord's body, causing him to feel quite shocked. He used his city lord seal's power, but his body still sank. He felt as if he was standing in front of a massive wave, and he couldn't help but tremble and feel powerless. As the region passageways opened, the hundreds of regions nearby heard Qin's name the most. He had risen to power and possessed terrifying power. Ordinary people were not a match for him at all, and countless factions feared him. However, Qin's policies had greatly weakened the enmity everyone felt towards him, causing everyone to look down on him and lower the danger he posed. This person in front of him was Qin's legatee? He had actually come to subdue him. His power was indeed monstrous, as expected from the supreme ruler of Qin. Under Zhao Fu's terrifying aura, the city lord knew that he wouldn't be able to defend against a single attack, so he didn't think too much. The city lord knelt on one knee and yelled, "Luanwu's city is willing to submit to Qin." Now that Zhao Fu had come, the city lord knew that he wasn't a match for Zhao Fu. He didn't want to die, so he could only choose to submit. Joining Qin was indeed a good choice. They would no longer have to worry about natural disasters or man-made disasters. Great Qin had purposefully announced the benefits of joining Great Qin, and many people now knew about it. Great Qin had also invited many city lords to personally go and take a look, giving them enough confidence. "What's your name?" Zhao Fu asked as he looked at the young man in front of him with his terrifying eyes. The city lord immediately replied respectfully, "This lowly one is called Zhang Quan." "Good. Zhang Quan, follow me and continue to subdue the city lord. Later, Qin's people will come to take over your city." After Zhao Fu gave his instructions, he turned into a beam of light and shot into the sky. Zhang Quan's face lit up. Now that he had submitted to Qin, if he could be valued by him, his status in the future would naturally not be low. So, he also turned into a beam of light and followed Zhao Fu. This wasn't a blitzkrieg, so they didn't lack time. As such, they had to first ask if they wanted to surrender. If they surrendered, they would be able to take over a system main city without any resistance. If they killed a city lord, the resistance would be quite intense. Boom! Another loud sound rang out as two terrifying auras descended on the city lord's mansion. The terrifying auras were like a huge boulder that pressed down on everyone's hearts. The entire city fell into a deathly silence. The city lord was a 50 to 60-year-old man, and he was also woken up. He hurriedly took out his weapon and rushed out, looking at the two powerful figures in the sky. "I am Qin's legatee. I ask you if you are willing to submit to Qin?" Zhao Fu once again repeated what he had just said, his voice filled with might and domineeringness. He gave off a cold aura that seemed to indicate that those who submitted would live and those who opposed would die. The city lord wasn't too surprised and chose to surrender. He then followed Zhao Fu to the third city and once again gave off a terrifying aura as he descended into the city lord's mansion. A wild-looking young man holding a large saber rushed out of the room and yelled, "Who are you? How dare you so impudently appear in my dark-room city?" This time, Zhao Fu didn't say anything. Now that he had two followers with him, if he did this himself, it would be too degrading. Beside him, Zhang Quan coldly harumphed and said, "This is Qin's legatee. You only have two choices, submit or die." "Ha ha ha." The wild-looking young man loudly laughed as he said, "I won't submit to anyone. Piss off. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite." Zhang Quan and Li Fu, the second elder who had surrendered, had cold gazes and wanted to act on Zhao Fu's behalf. This was an excellent opportunity to show off. This person was a king, and they had to act on his behalf to deal with such a minor figure. However, Zhao Fu didn't want to go through too much trouble, so he suddenly acted first. The Qin seal within his body slightly trembled, and a massive wave of power gathered at his fingertip. He pointed at the wild-looking young man, and a black wave of energy containing shocking power shot towards the wild-looking young man. Sensing this massive power, the wild-looking young man's expression fell, and he exploded out with a powerful aura. Traces of aura flowed out, forming a 10 or so meter long black panther that roared and leapt towards the black energy. Bang! The black energy pierced through the ferocious black panther, causing it to dissipate into countless traces of aura. However, the black energy was greatly weakened, and the wild-looking young man slashed out with his saber, slashing the black energy in half and dissipating. After being blocked, the wild-looking young man loudly laughed and mockingly looked at Zhao Fu. Zhang Quan and Li Fu were quite surprised to find that the wild-looking young man was not weak at all, and he was even slightly stronger than the two of them. Facing the wild-looking young man's provocation, Zhao Fu smiled condescendingly and suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed at the air. The wild-looking young man felt as if he had been grabbed by a massive, formless hand, and he immediately roared as he started to struggle. However, Zhao Fu lightly twisted his hand, causing the wild-looking young man to howl. His body was twisted like a fried dough twist, and blood flowed out of his skin. Some of the blood flowed out of his eyes, ears, nose, and mouth, and the wild-looking young man was dead. Even though Zhang Quan and Li Fu had long since prepared themselves that with Zhao Fu's power, he would be able to easily kill the wild-looking young man, seeing him die in such a pitiful manner was quite terrifying. If they hadn't chosen to submit, this would have been their outcome. They would have been crushed like ants. Your Majesty, what should we do now? As the city lord died, a large number of soldiers hurried over, and Zhang Quan's attitude became even more respectful than before. Zhao Fu glanced at the soldiers furiously charging over and said calmly, "Relocate the system main cities. There will be people to deal with them later." There would definitely be city lords who would resist, and it was impossible for all of them to surrender. Zhao Fu had long since expected this, so he had made preparations. Stage 2 and Stage 3 soldiers would soon arrive to suppress them. Zhao Fu did not choose to use Stage 1 soldiers, and he instead used even more powerful martial power to suppress them. This was the best method. Because this would cause people to feel more despair, they would be able to resist less, allowing more people to submit. Zhao Fu's side progressed quite smoothly, and he easily obtained 9 system main cities. However, Zhao Fu did not stop there, and he continued to fearlessly attack. The other groups were also progressing quite well, and powerful auras descended. 20 city lords descended on system main cities, and their auras were not any weaker than those of Zhao Fu's. Moreover, they gave off an even more oppressive feeling, making people feel even more fear. Cities either submitted or were destroyed, and the female city lords were forcefully subdued and brought back to Qin City. Chapter 802. After Qin took control of 40 regions, the 800 city lords gathered into 4 teams, each led by a general. They continued to savagely conquer the surrounding regions, and in the blink of an eye, they had conquered 62 regions. By now, it was quite dangerous because news of this would quickly spread, and countless city lords would quickly gather. When that time came, city lords would retaliate against Qin's city lord. The Eastern faction's city lords had never thought that Qin would suddenly attack and send out 800 city lords. This was equivalent to 200 or so regions' city lords. Even though many of the city lords had reacted in time, and some were near the regions that Qin had conquered and some were Qin's next targets, they were unable to stop Qin's barbaric expansion. They could only retreat strategically, but only a few of the cities that were quite far away were able to escape. As for the other cities, unless the city lords directly relocated their cities and did not bring any residents or soldiers with them, there would not be any problems. However, it was completely impossible to bring the residents and soldiers. After all, there were 400,000 to 500,000 residents, and how could they teleport all of them in a short period of time? Because all of Qin's city lords were incredibly powerful, their numbers were quite small, but they were more agile and fast. Often, just as these city lords were about to relocate, Qin's side would arrive, or before half of the residents had been teleported away, Qin would arrive. Under the immense pressure and the possibility of a large number of soldiers and civilians dying, most city lords could only surrender. Some city lords hardened their hearts and abandoned their soldiers and residents to escape by themselves, causing the soldiers' and residents' loyalty to plummet. Their resistance would become much weaker, and it would be easy for Qin to take them in. Time became quite tense and serious, and Qin fearlessly continued to conquer regions. Countless system city lords continuously hurried over, hoping to join forces to resist Qin. By now, Qin had already taken control of 84 regions, and he could not help but stop. There were too many city lords gathered, and Qin could not continue to wildly expand. As such, he could only stop and quickly digest them. Both sides exuded a terrifying aura as they confronted each other. Neither side dared to make the first move. The other side had many city lords, but they had 100 or so more city lords than Qin's side. Since Qin's side had stopped moving, they did not dare to directly attack, as there would be too many casualties. No one wanted to have too many casualties, so they wanted more city lords to come and suppress Qin's side. Fortunately, on Qin's side, there were a lot of preparations. They were secretly digesting the areas under their control. Countless teleportation formations were crazily sending people to Qin. Zhao Fu fully unleashed his senses, and as more and more city lords gathered, he could only give the order to retreat and give up on some of the regions that he had yet to digest. Otherwise, if these system main cities attacked Qin's side would suffer great losses. After all, the other side greatly outnumbered Qin's side, and more city lords were arriving. Moreover, most of the city lords in Qin's side were quite ordinary. He did not have general stars like Bai Qi, Wang Jian, or Wei Liao, nor did he have the power of a legatee. The only advantage he had was his talisman equipment. However, if the two sides fought, because of their overwhelming numbers, Qin would definitely lose. Moreover, Qin had already digested 80% of the 84 regions, which was already enough. He could not allow this to continue. As Qin retreated, the system main cities let out a sigh of relief. Some city lords even wanted to chase after Qin, but there were simply too few of them. If they sent a small number of city lords, they would just be sending themselves to their deaths, so they could only give up. Qin's sudden actions caused the northern side of the Midland continent to not be peaceful for an entire night, and all of the factions were woken up. Qin, who had been silent for so long, was like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey, instantly devouring 80 or so regions. Not only did this make the northern side's factions feel insecure, but the situation in China also became tense and oppressive. It was already quite good for many factions to take over a region or 2 or 3 regions, and only the most powerful factions would be able to do such a thing. However, compared to Qin, they were indeed quite weak. 800 city lords at once was quite shocking, and many people felt quite terrified. After all, the great Xia dynasty, which was one of China's legatees, only had 100 city lords. Compared to Qin, there was a difference of 7 or 8 times. Moreover, this was only the strength that Qin had displayed. Who knew if he was still hiding anything? As Qin moved, the situation in China once again changed, and undercurrents started to flow. This was because the slumbering evil dragon once again opened its ferocious eyes and revealed its terrifying fangs, revealing its incredibly dangerous power. It was as if an evil dragon had been born, and the world was about to descend into chaos. No one would be able to live in peace. There was nothing they could do. The threat that Qin had displayed was simply too great, making countless people feel quite unsettled. They were forced to take all sorts of measures to defend against the harm that Qin could cause. The other kingdoms in the Midland continent also heard about Qin suddenly destroying 80 or so regions, and they all took this matter seriously. At the same time, they guessed at Qin's goal and made plans. The sky had just brightened and the air was fresh and cool. The eastern factions of Qin's main goal was to resist Qin's barbaric invasion, and they immediately called back a meeting. They listed Qin as a bloody, barbaric, and evil person, and they invited the various factions to punish Qin. In order to attract more factions, everyone was allowed to participate in this meeting. Whether it was indigenous residents, players, or even outlanders, they could all gather here to discuss how to get rid of Qin. In just an instant, an anti-Qin storm swept through the Midland continent. In response, Qin's minister Li Si personally came out and confirmed that it was the eastern factions who had deliberately harmed Qin, and that they had never been on good terms with Qin. Qin was doing this for his own safety, and the heavens could see that he was doing this for justice. Please do not believe these sinister and cunning people. Have you ever seen Qin attack a city that he was on good terms with? Qin's cities all treated him with respect and gave him many resources. There was no need for Qin to say this. You can go to any of the cities near Qin's cities to prove that what Qin said was true or false. Qin was willing to live in peace with all of you, and do not believe the lies made up by evil people. Saying that great Qin was ruthless, bloodthirsty, evil, and barbaric was simply slander and ridiculous. If anyone really believed such ridiculous words, they would be an idiot and ignorant person. Chapter 803. The cities that had received Qin's help many times couldn't help but cry out for Qin. This proved that Qin had always been friendly to them and had never forced them by force. Those city lords who joined Qin all did so voluntarily. Now, natural disasters are frequent, and the resources of the cities are consumed too much. Qin has always been helping us. Qin is absolutely righteous and kind. Those who say that Qin is cruel, bloodthirsty, evil, and barbaric definitely don't know Qin's true character. At this moment, it is like a fairyland. Natural disasters and man-made disasters are frequent outside, but Qin is surrounded by birds and flowers. The people are living a healthy and prosperous life, and there are no man-made disasters. It is peaceful, which proves that Qin is not a violent person. Otherwise, how could the people be so happy? Such a good force should be slandered like this. As ordinary people, we can't stand it. Are those who slander Qin blind? How dare they say such ridiculous words? I will prove Qin's innocence. Among those who proved Qin's innocence, the cities that shouted the loudest and reacted the most fiercely had secretly decided to join Qin. It was Qin's idea to say such words. After all, the other cities had also received help from Qin, and Qin didn't hurt them. So, they all stood up to echo him. Even though it was just a simple response, the reaction was massive, and it created an image of Great Qin as a kind, friendly, and peaceful nation. It was a stark contrast to those who said that Great Qin was cruel, bloodthirsty, evil, and barbaric. Originally, Qin's unscrupulous and barbaric expansion had made countless cities feel threatened. They almost wanted to unite to destroy Qin. It seemed that Qin had reached the point where everyone wanted to kill him. But at this moment, the situation was reversed in an instant. Some people said that Qin was cruel and bloodthirsty, while others said that Qin was peaceful and friendly. The two views collided, and no one wanted to kill Qin. At this time, the city lords of the cities that had been captured by Qin stood up and announced in a high-profile manner that they had secretly planned to kill Qin. Now they had been subdued by Qin and were willing to serve Qin. Qin didn't blame us at all. He treated us well in all aspects and treated us as his family. You said all kinds of bad things about Qin. We also felt wronged for Qin. Justice should be upheld. It was us who were wrong. As soon as these words were spoken, many factions were shaken. Now, the city lords of the conquered regions had personally come to prove that Qin was innocent. Moreover, even though others wanted to harm him, he still chose to be friendly to those who harmed him. He chose to use virtue to convince the masses and treat people peacefully. What a noble character! Immediately, The public opinion in the north of the mainland was on Qin's side. They thought that Qin was kind and peaceful. Qin hadn't launched a war against a foreign country for a long time. Now he suddenly went to such a faraway place to attack others. There must be something hidden. Moreover, he hadn't even cleared out the nearby cities. Why would he attack other places? This was really unnecessary, and they couldn't understand why. Most of the city lords in the east didn't know the truth. They only knew that Qin was attacking, so they immediately joined forces and chose to resist Qin together. However, they didn't expect things to change like this. One side said that Qin was evil, while the other side said that Qin was kind. Now, it was obvious that Qin was kind because there was all kinds of evidence to prove it. If it was really those city lords who conspired to harm Qin first, then they deserved to be destroyed by Qin. As long as Qin didn't continue to attack, they didn't need to risk their lives to fight against Qin. As such, the city lords who had been fighting against Qin collapsed in a short while, and the city lords left one after another. The city lords who came out to prove that Qin was kind had already submitted to Qin, so they naturally listened to Qin's orders. It wasn't a problem for them to make false testimonies for Qin. Moreover, Zhao Fu didn't show up at all. Everything was handled by Li Si. Even if he was found out, he could push all the blame to Li Si. This was just a small trick of the regime. It was obvious that Qin Sheng was an evil, violent, and barbaric guy, but he dared to say that he was kind and friendly so openly and shamelessly. This made many city lords who knew the truth so angry that they wanted to die. For example, some city lords who escaped from the areas that Qin attacked and conquered stood out to prove that they didn't have the intention to plot against Qin, and that everything was framed by Qin. It was clear that Qin had deliberately invaded. This kind of method was really shameless, and they didn't dare to admit it. In response, Qin harshly retorted that Qin definitely didn't have any intention of attacking these cities. If Qin had come, it would have been because they were afraid that they would run away and cause countless residents to lose their support. They were cowardly and irresponsible people. Both sides started to argue, but neither side sent out troops. In actuality, Zhao Fu had long since made preparations and had sent a large number of soldiers to defend the Great Wall, waiting for them to attack. However, they didn't dare to come. This was because they didn't have enough people. They only had 400 city lords and 40 million soldiers. They understood that they weren't a match for Qin, so they naturally wouldn't attack. Now, they couldn't stand on the side of justice and cause even more city lords to join forces against them. Qin's actions made them feel incredibly furious. He had turned black into white and the dead into alive. He was simply too shameless. They were furious, but they couldn't do anything about it. The player factions all knew that this was just Qin's strategy. They knew Qin's true nature, as from the very beginning, Qin was a synonym for ruthlessness and evil. However, even though they knew this, they didn't dare to do anything. After all, with Qin's strength, it would already be good if he didn't make trouble for them. If they dared to make trouble for him, they would be destroyed by Qin at any moment. Everyone knew what was going on, but they could only pretend that they didn't know. This was how powerful Qin was. Qin's gains this time were simply shocking. He had obtained 240 cities, 22 million Stage 1 soldiers, and 110 million residents. His level 4 capital city only lacked a bit of EXP to level up into a level 5 capital city. His strength had once again increased by a monstrous amount. Since there were no battles, Qin once again kept a low profile and properly digested this power. As for the other two factions, he could only delay them for a bit. Now that he had some free time, Zhao Fu once again returned to the real world to take care of some matters. He found out that the Great Ming Dynasty and Great Song Dynasty had allied together to destroy the White Lotus Society. However, because the White Lotus Society was incredibly widespread and had deep roots, they could only heavily injure them each time and were unable to uproot them. Chapter 804. Zhao Fu thought about it for a while before agreeing. After all, they still had a lot of value. Even though Zhao Fu wanted to uproot them, with Zhao Fu's current state of mind and vision, he was no longer limited to the legacy land. His way of thinking had greatly changed. He did not care too much about the White Lotus Society. Zhao Fu could destroy them at any time. Now that he was offering them protection, it would be quite good to use them to annoy others. Moreover, they had provided a lot of information before, but now that Qin was working with Flower Moon, he no longer needed the White Lotus Society. However, offering them protection was a form of compensation. As long as others did not let him down, Zhao Fu did not want to let them down either. As such, he would give them some face. Zhao Fu then chatted with the class president of his university. His development had been quite rapid, and he had become the leader of 20,000 people in the blink of an eye. Zhao Fu had not helped him much and had only provided him with some resources. His current achievements were all due to his own abilities. The real world was becoming more and more chaotic, and ordinary people could sense that something was off. Even though there were many people trying to explain things, the situation was becoming worse and worse. It was only a matter of time before the real world collapsed. Zhao Fu could not help but think of a few people. Now that the outside world was so chaotic, he wondered if he should bring them to the Ying family and ask the Ying family to protect them. Most of these people had helped Zhao Fu before, and Zhao Fu did not want to see anything happen to them. As such, he made a list and gave it to his subordinates to invite them to the Ying family's territory. They would be protected. After returning to the heaven-awakened world, Qin was still slowly digesting the massive number of people, buildings, and food. This was not something that could be solved in a short period of time, so Zhao Fu could only wait. Another week later, Qin had finally digested most of the people. The war between Qin and the Eastern factions was still incredibly intense. The Eastern factions accused Qin of being a shameless and cunning person, a hungry wolf in a noble disguise. Qin continued to refute harshly, proving that these Eastern forces were sinister and vicious villains. They slandered Qin in various ways, envied Qin's power, and wanted to kill Qin every day. At first, most people were willing to listen to the quarrel between the two sides. But as time went by, they didn't care about it anymore. They turned their attention to other things and didn't target Qin anymore. Now that the limelight had passed, people didn't care about it anymore. It could be said that by using this method to resolve a crisis, it could also resolve a war in which there were countless casualties and Qin did not have full confidence. In truth, Zhao Fu had been a bit disdainful of this sort of verbal warfare at the start. After all, he was more inclined towards a head-on confrontation. In a head-on confrontation, the victor would be king, and the weak would submit. However, there were simply too many enemies, and Zhao Fu did not have full confidence. If he could use this method to reduce the casualties of countless soldiers, Zhao Fu would be willing to do it. After all, Zhao Fu believed that soldiers' lives were the most important, and any method could be used. Zhao Fu also planned to find an opportunity to destroy the Eastern factions that were arguing with Qin. However, now was not a good time to do so, as it would attract too much attention, and Qin would not be able to explain himself. Right now, the most important thing was to carry out the second set of tactics. Zhao Fu first found the regions in the south and west where he could attack, and then secretly set up a large number of teleportation channels. This time, he had to be incredibly secretive and not allow any information to be leaked. Zhao Fu bought many intermediate isolation barriers and advanced isolation barriers from the outside world, making it so that ordinary teleportation channels were basically useless. At the same time, there were 400 city lords participating in this operation to prevent anything unexpected from happening. Of course, they could not devour too many regions at once, or else they would attract too much attention. As such, Zhao Fu planned to only devour one region a day. Taking advantage of the night, Qin headed to the region that he had chosen. The city lords were all wearing cloaks, concealing their auras, and 1,000,000 Stage 2 soldiers were also prepared to clean up the mess. The people in this region still had not sensed the impending danger. This region was suffering from the snow disaster, and even though it was spring, the temperature was still incredibly cold. Everywhere was covered in ice and snow, and the four main cities found it difficult to defend against the natural disasters. There were no players within the main cities, as players were the source of the natural disasters. In order to defend against the natural disasters and reduce casualties and chaos, the main cities chased away the players, making some players quite displeased. In such cold weather, once one lay down on a warm bed, it was easy to fall asleep. At night, the four main cities fell silent. Suddenly, powerful auras exploded out, causing countless people to wake up from their dreams. When they opened their eyes, many people felt as if there was a massive boulder weighing down on their bodies. This was the might of 100 city lords working together, and it instantly suppressed countless people. Within the city hall, a middle-aged man with stubble held a weapon as he looked at the 100 mysterious black-cloaked figures in the sky with despair. He evidently did not have the strength to fight 100 people by himself, and facing such a powerful force, his first thought was that he was finished. At the same time, he felt quite confused. He did not know who these people were and why they had suddenly invaded his city. "Do you choose to surrender?" the cloaked figure in the lead asked the middle-aged man with stubble, giving off a powerful aura. The middle-aged man could only choose to submit, and he could not help but ask, "Who are you?" The person in the lead did not reply and only said that he would understand once he reached that place. This side was progressing quite smoothly, but the other side was not doing so well. One of the city lords chose to resist and was killed, and his soldiers and residents also vigorously resisted. Some people tried to escape through teleportation channels, but they found that they could not be used. Qin City activated a large number of isolation barriers, cutting off this region from the rest of the world, and the teleportation channels in this region also became useless. In the end, the 100 city lords forcefully suppressed this city, killing 60,000 Stage 1 soldiers and 100,000 or so residents. After suppressing this system main city, the 100 city lords did not do anything else, and they instead flew into the sky to sense their surroundings in order to prevent anything unexpected from happening. Following this, Qin City's soldiers hurried over and transported these people back to Qin City. They then started to clean up the blood and corpses, as well as any traces of people having been here. After waking up that night, the region became completely peaceful. All of the residents of the four main cities had disappeared, and there was not a single sound. Because there were no players here and indigenous residents rarely used teleportation channels to go to other places, no one had noticed anything strange about this region. Chapter 805. The most important thing was to be careful, so Zhao Fu was not in a hurry. He continued to attack one region a day, attacking the western side and then the southern side. Of course, on the surface, he was still fighting against the eastern side, and the smell of gunpowder was quite intense. Both sides didn't show any signs of weakness at all. They were full of confidence, awe-inspiring righteousness, and sternly refuted each other. They portrayed a truly cunning and sinister person to the fullest, with one set in the open and another set in the dark. 7 or 8 days after the incident, there were still people who noticed the supernatural incident. Suddenly, everyone disappeared in one night. There was no sound at all, and there were no signs at all. A few million people had disappeared like ghosts. However, not many people knew about this, and it did not attract much attention. A few days later, Qin City successfully leveled up to a level 5 capital city. This made Zhao Fu feel quite delighted, as it was only one level away from becoming a level 6 capital city. After that, it would become a royal city, and Qin City would be able to officially establish a kingdom. Zhao Fu went to the city hall and saw the powerful stats of a level 5 capital city. Village name: Qin City, epic level. Level 5 capital city village area: 229,400 square kilometers. Village territory: 12421,800 square kilometers. Popular support: 86. Special stats: territory crop output plus 240%, territory crop growth time minus 240%, population limit plus 155%, residence stats plus 18, soldiers stats plus 19%, population attraction plus 180%, high-grade attraction plus 180%. Subsidiary village limit: 246930. Subordinate villages: Logue Village, Jean Village, Doran Village, Li Family Village, Wolf Village, Ferocious Tiger Village. Leveling up from a level 5 capital city to a level 6 capital city required even more EXP, which was 800 million EXP. An ordinary person would not be able to obtain such a massive amount of EXP in their lifetime, and 800 million EXP was enough to instantly turn countless towns into cities. If it wasn't for the sake of establishing a kingdom, Zhao Fu would not spend so much EXP on leveling up a city. After all, leveling up countless towns would bring even greater benefit. However, Zhao Fu still chose to level up a capital city. After all, in the Heaven Awakened world, establishing a kingdom and not establishing a kingdom were two completely different things, and there was a massive difference between them. After establishing a kingdom, one's various abilities would be unlocked, and it was not something that a faction without a kingdom could compare to. Now, Qin was one level away from establishing a country. Needless to say, they would naturally know when the country was established. The power and strength of a country were absolutely terrifying and shocking. 800 million EXP was not something that could be gathered in a short period of time, and it would take a lot of time. Right now, Great Qin was still devouring a region every day. A month later, this supernatural incident finally caused panic. Regions of people had disappeared without any warning, leaving behind ghost cities. There was no blood or corpses, and it was incredibly strange. Countless people could not understand what was going on. These areas were mainly distributed in the south and west. Occasionally, an area would disappear in the east. However, there was no connection between the areas that disappeared, and they were quite far away. News of the northern continent's supernatural incidents quickly spread throughout all of China, and it became the hottest topic on the Heaven Awakened World Forum. They could not understand just what had happened and where the residents and soldiers had gone. There were no signs of battle, nor were there any blood or corpses. It was as if those people had evaporated into thin air. Since the beginning of this situation, 42 regions had mysteriously disappeared. The disappearance of so many regions was no small matter. Everyone continued to speculate. Some people guessed that it was Great Qin who had done this. After all, pushing all of the abnormal signs onto Great Qin was not wrong, so they could only guess. However, there was no evidence, so they could only guess. Others said, "Don't put everything on Qin. Right now, Qin is tangling with the eastern factions, so how could he have the time to do something like this? I think it's the work of a faction from another world that has infiltrated China." I think so too. Right now, Qin is facing off against the eastern factions, so he wouldn't be so stupid as to challenge 3 factions at once. That would be too much pressure, and I think it's because of some strange natural disaster. For example, the Disaster Festival's death disaster was similar to this. Now that all sorts of natural disasters had appeared, it was possible that the death disaster would appear as well. Everyone made their own guesses as to why this was happening, and they all had their own reasons. Now that countless people were paying attention to this, it made it even more difficult for Qin to do what he wanted. Now that things had become so big, the various factions became incredibly wary. It was not good for Qin to act, as it was possible that he would be discovered. As such, he could only give up on this tactic. However, he had obtained another 120 cities this time, and even though it had taken him a lot of time and effort, it was still worth it. This matter definitely could not be leaked, because once it was leaked, Qin's plan would be completely exposed, and he would be attacked by countless factions. This matter had become quite big, and it was possible that more than half of the factions in the northern side of the Midland continent would participate in destroying Qin. As such, Zhao Fu did not dare to do anything. Although Qin had given up on this tactic, strange things had happened in other continents, and it was not just Qin who had been threatened by the system factions. It seemed that many people knew the truth and did not expose him. Instead, they learned this tactic to obtain greater benefit. The various factions in China were now on guard and could not continue using this tactic. However, the other continents' city lords did not know about this, so the plan was quite successful. This caused countless people to panic, and the higher-ups of the various factions understood what was going on. Most of the ordinary people were panicking, and just like that, Qin's suspicions were cleared. This made Zhao Fu feel quite speechless. Zhao Fu did not plan to let things end like this, and he ordered his people to continue attacking a region as he yelled, "Those who don't submit to Qin will die." Following this, they took down 2 cities and killed some people. However, the surrounding city lords reacted incredibly quickly and rushed to the region where the attacks had taken place. There were many players in this region, so news of them being attacked quickly spread. Everyone was shocked to find that the culprit behind all of this was Qin. However, they were quickly rebutted and they scoffed at this, saying, "Are you all idiots? Why did you shout out Qin's name when Qin attacked? Aren't you saying that Qin did it? Do you really think that Qin would be such an idiot? It's definitely someone trying to frame him." At that moment, Qin furiously stood up, acting as if he was a righteous and kind-hearted person who had been greatly humiliated. He started to criticize the Eastern factions and shamelessly announced that it was the Eastern factions who had framed Qin. "Everyone, think about it, who has enmity with Qin? Only the Eastern factions can do such a thing. These despicable and insidious people dare to slander Qin and humiliate my, Qin's, reputation. If they don't give Qin an explanation, they will definitely attack and use their blood to prove my, Qin's, reputation." Chapter 806. This time, it could be seen that Qin was truly furious and was going to attack the Eastern factions to prove Qin's name with blood. Qin's name could not be humiliated. Great Qin's furious actions caused the surrounding regions to fall silent. After seeing the terrifying power that Great Qin had displayed, no one wanted to offend Great Qin right now. The Eastern factions, who had been arguing with Qin, felt even more furious because they had not done anything like this. It was definitely Qin's fault, but most people believed Qin and did not believe them at all. This made them feel wronged. Now that Qin wanted to use this opportunity to attack, the Eastern factions felt incredibly furious and sullen. However, they could only calm down because they were definitely not a match for Qin. If they fought, they would definitely lose. Now that they had calmed down, Qin became even more arrogant. He attacked the Eastern factions and then aggressively stated that if they remained silent and did not admit their mistakes, Qin would still attack. After such a long time, Qin had been waiting for justice to arrive, so he had not acted against the Eastern factions. He hoped that they would understand that Qin was not a bloodthirsty and cruel person, but the Eastern factions' methods were simply too despicable and vicious. Qin definitely could not endure this anymore. He had already given the Eastern factions a chance, and if they still did not admit their mistakes, Qin could only attack. This sonorous voice showed how magnanimous, friendly, and unyielding Qin was. Even if he attacked now, it was because he had been forced by the Eastern factions. Now, everyone was waiting for the Eastern factions to express their stance. If they did not express their stance, they would be attacked, and they definitely did not want to participate. Qin was also waiting for this opportunity. If they did not admit their mistakes, Qin would be able to openly destroy them. At that moment, the eastern factions were deathly silent, and everyone looked furious. As long as there was a chance of winning, they would definitely fight to the death with Qin. Qin was a despicable person, and they continuously cursed him in their hearts. However, in reality, they were not a match for Qin at all. They originally had 400 city lords, but after hearing that Qin was going to attack, the 100 city lords did not want to cause any trouble. They told the outside world that they did not know anything and chose to leave. Now, there were only 300 city lords left, and they were not a match for Qin at all. Should they insist that they were not in the wrong and be destroyed by Qin, or should they compromise and resolve this crisis? In the end, the Eastern forces chose to compromise. This was the reality. They couldn't defeat Qin, so they could only admit defeat. They had to announce to the public that everything was their doing and admit their mistakes in humiliation. Qin generously expressed that he was willing to accept this. As long as they admitted their mistakes, Qin would still be willing to accept them. This caused countless people to praise him. For a time, more than a dozen city lords were attracted by Qin's righteous figure and chose to join Qin. In fact, Zhao Fu sighed in disappointment. If the eastern forces had persisted, Qin could have attacked them directly and annexed all their forces. However, since they were willing to admit their mistakes, it would not be good for Qin to make a move. He could only act magnanimous and wait for an opportunity to destroy them. This debate between evil and justice had lasted for a long time, and in the end, Great Qin had emerged victorious. Great Qin's image of peace, friendship, and righteousness won everyone's praise, and the eastern faction's city lords were labeled as evil and despicable. Using this momentum, Qin continued to send out ambassadors, and they were welcomed by countless cities. Following this, Qin once again calmed down and became quite free. His soldiers could only train, as there were no battles to fight. In actuality, Zhao Fu wanted to clear out the 80 or so regions that he had conquered, but those places were quite far away from Qin. If Qin sent out so many soldiers, if their retreat path was cut off, both Qin and his soldiers would be in great danger. Even though China seemed to be quite peaceful, Zhao Fu knew that many people were secretly spying on Qin. If Qin made any big mistakes, they would definitely seize the opportunity to counterattack. Zhao Fu did not dare to send out so many soldiers, so he could only have his soldiers train and increase the number of diplomatic missions. He wanted more cities to join Great Qin so that they would be able to clear out the nearby regions. After a few more days, the last festival of the human world finally arrived. This festival was called the 6 Days Festival, which meant that it would last for 6 days, but it also contained the meaning of 6 festivals. Ever since the human world had entered the heaven-awakened world, there had been 6 festivals. The 10,000 Flower Festival, the Ghost Festival, the Divine Fish Festival, the Disaster Festival, the New Year Festival, and the Trial Festival. The 6-day festival was the second stage of the 6 festivals, and there would be a festival every day. For example, the first day was the 10,000 Flower Festival's second stage, the Flower World. The second day was the Ghost Festival's second stage, the Ghost World. And the third day was the Divine Fish Festival's second stage, the Fish Spirit World. Thinking back to the 6 festivals, Zhao Fu couldn't help but happily smile. After all, many of Great Qin's important things came from these festivals, such as the 100 Ghost Illusionist profession and the Ghost Summoner profession. This was especially so for the 100 Ghost Illusionists, who had been incredibly useful on countless battlefields. After using them a few times, things had become much easier to deal with, and they had contributed greatly to Qin. There were also Stage 3 and Stage 4 medicinal pill recipes, the Emperor Phoenix statue, the Corpse Soul Blood Lake, the 5 great generals, and Qin's most important dragon nest, which he had obtained from the Divine Fish Festival's legendary upgrade stone. Even the incredibly powerful World Beast, which could only be born in a single world, had been obtained from the trial festival. Also, the magic formations to leave the legacy land relied on event items. Some people said that these events were useless, but without these things, how could Qin have developed so quickly? For example, the void talismans that Zhao Fu had obtained during the New Year festival had become his greatest weapon against players in the real world. Without these talismans, it was possible that Qin would still be suppressed by countless players. Zhao Fu had kept these talismans and did not use them against the fish scale world. This was mainly because he was wary of human players. If he used them against the fish scale people, he would lose them and be attacked by a large number of human players, which would put him at a disadvantage. After all, human players could endlessly revive, and if it wasn't for the fact that they could harm their real bodies in the real world, they would not be afraid of Qin. As such, it was impossible for players to run away as soon as Qin appeared. Chapter 807. In the future, the chaotic world stone steals would disappear, and if people wanted to obtain good pill recipes, equipment or city creation stones, they would have to buy them or steal them. Otherwise, they would not be able to obtain them again. Zhao Fu felt that it was impossible to obtain them. That was how important these events were, and those who thought that they were useless were wrong. Without these things, how could a faction develop? Right now, the best medicinal pills were most likely Stage 2, and the best equipment was legendary. People could only steal to obtain what they wanted, and they lacked resources. How could they develop so quickly? It was a pity that this was the final festival, and there wouldn't be any more festivals in the future. There were some things that people couldn't even buy or steal, so they could only rely on themselves to slowly develop. However, because it was the final festival, the rewards were incredibly precious. There were 6 types of items on the rankings, and there were 3 of each type. 1. 9 Dragon Spirit Spear. Grade. Level 1 Saint Armament. Description: forged from 9 dragon remnant souls and spirit earth stones, and has immense power. 2 Flame Beast Tooth Saber. Grade. Level 1 Saint Armament. Description: forged from the tooth of an extremely powerful flame beast king, and has immense fire attribute power. 3 Chilling Moon Divine Bow. Grade. Level 1 Saint Armament. Description: forged from chilling moon stone and godly iron, an extremely powerful divine bow. 4 Human Ghost. SS Grade Military. Description: a powerful profession formed from the fusion of a human and a ghost. Number of professions can be changed. 1000. 5 Ghost God Soldier. Grade. SS Grade Military. Description: able to use powerful ghosts to forge ghostly soldiers that are extremely powerful. Number of professions can be changed. 1000. 6 Ghost Eyes. Grade. SS Grade Military. Description: has the ability to summon ghost spirit eyes, which can be used for scouting and can also use ghost-devouring eyes. 7 Tao Comprehension Pill. A cultivation-type medicinal pill that is extremely rare in the world. It has extremely powerful effects, and it can cause one to comprehend the Tao and control the source energy of the heavens and earth. Those with low cultivations should not consume it, or their souls will be destroyed. 8 Heavenly Sage Pill. A rare holy pill that can defy the heavens. It can raise a person's grade from human grade to heaven grade, and it can change one's constitution and strengthen one's attribute. 9 Revival Pill. An extremely heaven-defying medicinal pill that can heal injuries. No matter how heavily injured someone is, or even if they are already dead, as long as they have not been dead for more than 8 hours, they will be able to live after consuming this revival pill. 10 Celestial City. Grade. Legendary. Description: a city where celestials live. It has a spirit-gathering formation that can increase one's cultivation speed. It also has the legacy art, Yin-Yang art. Sword Mountain. Grade. Legendary. Description: a city that focuses on swords. It contains a powerful sword intent, and it contains the legacy sword art, absolute soul / and the legacy cultivation technique, above the sword. Holy God City, grade. Legendary description: a city with a godly spirit's bloodline. It has immense power and will spawn weak, godly bloodline races. 13. General's Fate. Khaled, a historical general's fate. After using it, one can obtain Khaled's fate, and one can obtain various skills and innate stat. 14. General's Fate. Carthage, a historical general's fate. After using it, one can obtain Khaled's fate, and one can obtain various skills and innate stat. 15. General's Fate. Suvorov, a historical general's fate. After using it, one can obtain Khaled's fate, and one can obtain various skills and innate stat. 16. Nine-tailed Devil Fox, a legendary devil beast that has snow-white fur and 9 tails. Not only is it innately charming, but it also has many illusions that can confuse people's hearts. It also has a massive amount of devil chi. 17. Divine Dragon Horse, a dragon horse from Eastern legends. It has a pure divine dragon bloodline, and it is said to be the mount of a saint. It is incredibly powerful, and it is as fast as lightning. It can soar into the air, and it is not something ordinary beasts can compare to. 18. Hell Three-Headed Hound, a vicious dog from Western legends. It has 3 heads and has hellfire. It is said to guard the gates of hell, and has incredibly ferocious and terrifying power. After looking through the rankings, Zhao Fu could not help but feel incredibly excited. The treasures on the rankings were all incredibly rare, and ordinary people would not be able to obtain them at all. There were 3 saint armaments right from the start, which was something that ordinary dynasties would not have. This was because saint armaments were definitely the strongest divine armaments in history. As the place where fate was the most concentrated, China had only given birth to 2 saint armament. One was the Xianyuan sword, and the other was the Qiyu saber. In the entire human world, there were definitely no more than 10 saint armaments, and it could be seen how precious they were. Some independent people might want equipment, but Zhao Fu did not lack any because he already had enough weapons. Next were medicinal pills, which were similar to the medicinal pills from before. Even though they were quite precious and Qin needed them, he decided to put them aside for now. The general's fate could also be put aside, as he did not really need it. Finally, the god beast egg could also be put aside. What interested Zhao Fu the most were the 3 powerful professions and the 3 legendary grade cities. These 3 professions were related to ghosts, and there could be 1,000 of them. Zhao Fu felt that these professions would be incredibly useful in future battles, and they would allow Qin to develop even more quickly and help Qin clear all obstacles. There were also 3 legendary grade cities. Right now, only dynasties had legendary grade cities, so they were naturally quite difficult to obtain. They were used to establish a faction's core, and their stats determined how powerful a faction was. Last time, Zhao Fu had not been able to obtain even one of the 10 legendary grade cities, and he had felt quite regretful. Now that he had obtained these 3 legendary grade cities, Zhao Fu did not want to give up on them at all. What Zhao Fu wanted the most were the 3 professions and the 3 legendary grade cities. As for the others, Zhao Fu did not even bother looking at them. As long as he could obtain these 6 legendary grade cities, it would be enough, and he would be able to make Qin's faction even more powerful. Zhao Fu only gave a simple explanation for this event, and he did not know what it would be like. However, because it was the second stage of the 6 previous festivals, it would definitely be related to the 6 previous festivals. This event was incredibly important to Qin, so Zhao Fu stopped everything and started to prepare for the 6-day festival. Chapter 808. Now, Qin controlled 160 regions, including 1,472 great cities, 30 cities, 240 towns, and 22,489 villages. His total population was now 690 million or so, and he had 100 million soldiers. There were 80 million Stage 1 soldiers too, 8 million Stage 2 soldiers, 300,000 Stage 3 soldiers, and 14,000 Stage 4 soldiers. Everyone in Great Qin started to prepare for the 6-day festival. The 6-day festival would start at 12 a.m., and even though it was still early in the morning and there was still some time until 12 a.m., there was not enough time. After all, they had to prepare for 6 festivals, so how could they have enough time? Each festival only lasted for 1 day, and after the next festival, there would be no free time. As such, Qin became quite busy, and Zhao Fu personally left the Legacy Land to buy all sorts of things. Time passed quickly. It seemed like it hadn't even been long before the sky turned dark. Bright stars appeared in the dark blue night sky, forming a beautiful and spectacular Milky Way. Suddenly, the sky was filled with all sorts of colors, white, pink, and azure, and they were all distributed in an orderly fashion. It did not look chaotic, and it looked like a painting. Flower petals started to fall from the sky like a rain of flowers. There were all sorts of flower petals, and the scene of flower petals filling the sky was incredibly majestic. It seemed like something that would only happen in a dream, and there was a faint fragrance in the air. Under the control of the festival's power, the flowers on the ground started to blossom into beautiful flowers that were symmetrical with the dancing petals, causing the entire world to become a world of flowers. Zhao, we love this festival. The 3 flower spirits smiled and excitedly flew around Zhao Fu. They were spirits that had been born from flowers, so they were naturally the most excited about the 10,000 Flower Festival. Under Zhao Fu's nurturing, their strength had reached Stage 5, and even though they were still as big as a palm, they could use powerful plant magic. Zhao Fu smiled as he looked at the world of flowers. This was the 2nd stage of the 10,000 Flower Festival, and it was different from the beginning of the 10,000 Flower Festival. After the sky full of flower petals stopped falling, crystalline beads appeared on the flowers. These were flower tears. System announcement. You have received the Level 3 Flower Fairy's blessing, and have received 3 times the buff from the Flower Tear blessing. This system announcement made Zhao Fu feel quite delighted. He had never thought that the Flower Fairy's blessing would have such an effect. The Flower Fairy's blessing had caused flowers to bloom everywhere in Qin, and the air to be filled with the fragrance of flowers. However, it only lasted for 3 years, and it was now the 3rd year in the Heaven Awaken world. Zhao Fu still remembered that he had received the flower's embrace, which could increase one's charm towards women and spirits. It was this blessing that had attracted the 3 flower spirits to Qin. Now that the flower tears had appeared, there was quite a bit of time. Now, Qin didn't have much time. Zhao Fu ordered his people to prepare some things. However, at that moment, something unexpected happened. The ground continuously trembled as a flower monster crawled out from the ground. It was humanoid, but its body was made of plant. Its hands and legs were made of roots, and there was a flower on its head that had a blue flower tear on it. This flower spirit's strength was at stage 0 to 7, and it wasn't something that ordinary residents could deal with. Even though the 2nd stage of the 10,000 Flower Festival was even more beautiful than before, it was also much more dangerous. After the flower spirit appeared, it rushed at everyone, and a stage 1 soldier stabbed out with a spear, piercing through its heart. The flower spirit fell to the ground and died, turning into motes of light and disappearing. They weren't real creatures and were instead products of some kind of activity. Zhao Fu had never thought that there would be such a change. Luckily, he had enough soldiers, and all of them had stage 1 strength, so dealing with some flower spirits would be no problem. He also had the residents form teams with the soldiers so that they wouldn't have to worry about their safety. The Stage 2 and Stage 3 soldiers were responsible for dealing with the higher-grade flower devils. Because of the blue flower tears on the flower devils' heads, they were split into different grades. The higher the grade of flower tears, the higher the grade of flower devils. Now that Qin controlled 160 regions, he had more than enough space to find flower tears. He had nearly 700 million people, and he had 3 times the flower tear points, so he could collect countless flower tears. However, with this amount of power, Zhao Fu didn't feel at ease. Now, all of the regions in the world had been opened up, and people could freely come and go. Let alone collecting the flower tears of an entire continent. Even if someone collected 1,000 regions worth of flower tears, Zhao Fu wouldn't be able to compete with them. Right now, Zhao Fu didn't have any confidence at all, so he ordered his people to buy flower tears with money or equipment or medicinal pills. He wanted to obtain flower tears at all costs, as Zhao Fu desperately wanted those 6 items. Zhao, I can sense a very, very big flower spirit in the distance. Rose, the most lively of the 3 flower spirits, gestured with her hands as she spoke. We can sense it too. The other 2 flower fairies also opened their mouth. Zhao Fu felt quite surprised. He had never thought that the flower spirits would have the ability to sense flower spirits. Moreover, they had said that the flower spirit was very big, which meant that the flower tears were very high grade. Zhao Fu grinned. He now had 3 flower spirits, and he could take one with him and give the other 2 to others. High-grade flower tears could be used to unlock blessings and could be exchanged for festival points. A violet flower tear was worth 10,000 normal flower tears, an orange flower tear was worth 100,000 normal flower tears, and a platinum flower tear was worth 1 million normal flower tears. Zhao Fu quickly called over Bai Qi and Gunia. Killing flower spirits required great power, and Bai Qi was the most powerful after fusing with his 7 murders power. Gunia was Zhao Fu's strongest swordsman, and with the 2 of them, they would be able to quickly kill the flower spirits. However, one of them gave off a dense killing intent, while the other gave off a sharp sword intent. The 2 flower spirits trembled in fear, and tears almost came out of their eyes. As such, Zhao Fu could only call over Asani and Daisy and have them take the flower spirits to look for flower spirits, while Bai Qi and Gunia were responsible for killing them. Seeing the familiar faces of Asani and Daisy, the 2 flower spirits quickly became happy and led them to search for flower spirit. Rose, let's go as well. We'll be able to see them when we get back. Rose looked the most lively, but she was also the weakest. Even if the 2 flower spirits left for a while, they would feel quite uncomfortable and depressed, so Zhao Fu could not help but comfort them. All right. Rose quickly came back to her senses and gave a sweet smile as she replied. Chapter 809. The first one was an orange flower tear, which was worth 100,000 normal flower tears, which made Zhao Fu feel quite delighted. This 10 or so meter tall flower devil had stage 4 strength, but in front of Zhao Fu, it couldn't even withstand a single blow. Roar! The massive flower devil discovered Zhao Fu and gave a muffled roar that sounded out in the surrounding kilometers. It then strode forwards and swung its large hands towards Zhao Fu with shocking power. Rose wasn't very afraid because she had stage 5 strength and trusted that Zhao Fu would deal with it. As such, she sat on Zhao Fu's shoulder and stared at the massive flower devil. At that moment, Zhao Fu took out the Sin Dragon sword and slashed out, sending out an extremely sharp cold light that easily cut the flower devil's body in half. The massive flower devil instantly collapsed to the ground, kicking up a lot of dust before turning into motes of light and dissipating. A pearl giving off a faint orange light floated in the air, and Zhao Fu grabbed at the air, causing the pearl to fly into Zhao Fu's hand. Dawn Flower Tear. A flower tear that can be exchanged for 100,000 flower tears. Collecting 10 Dawn Flower Tears will unlock the level 4 Flower Fairy's blessing. After looking at its stats, Zhao Fu was quite satisfied and put it away. The Flower Fairy's blessing was quite useful for beautifying the environment, and he wondered how long the level 4 Flower Fairy's blessing would last. Rose, can you still sense where the flower devils are? Zhao Fu asked Rose, who was sitting on his shoulder, as he put away the flower tear. Hearing this, Rose closed her eyes and carefully sensed her surroundings before opening her eyes and stretching out her little hand as she said happily, "Zhao, there's a big flower devil over there." Hearing this, Zhao Fu flew in the direction that Rose had pointed out. Soon, he found another flower devil that had a dawn flower tear, and after killing it, he obtained another dawn flower tear. "Zhao, there's a really big flower demoness over there." A few hours later, Rose suddenly gestured with her hands, and a flower demoness that was even bigger than what she had described earlier appeared. Zhao Fu grinned. This meant that there were high-grade flower tears. Over the past few hours, Zhao Fu had killed 59 flower devils and obtained 59 dawn flower tears. Zhao Fu once again flew in the direction that Rose had pointed, and a 30-meter-tall, giant-like flower devil appeared before Zhao Fu. This flower devil was even bigger than the dawn flower devil, and it was thicker. Its figure was clearer, and its aura was more powerful. Its strength had reached stage 5, and within the massive flower on its head was a flower tear that gave off a platinum light. However, in front of Zhao Fu, a stage 5 flower devil wasn't even worth mentioning. Zhao Fu once again swung the Sin Dragon sword, but he had never expected the flower devil to have learned skills. The flower devil raised its hands in front of its body, and countless branches stretched out. Flowers bloomed, forming a flower shield, looking incredibly beautiful. Zhao Fu's sword light slashed against the flower shield, causing countless flower petals to fly everywhere like rain. Roar! The flower shield was slashed apart, and a long gash appeared on the flower devil's hands, causing it to howl and retreat a few steps. However, it was still alive. Zhao Fu felt quite surprised. He had never thought that something like this would happen. However, he had only casually slashed out, and he hadn't used much power. This time, Zhao Fu was a bit more serious, and he once again killed the flower devil. The flower devil's massive body turned into motes of light and disappeared, and a platinum pearl floated in the air. At the same time, a jade-green seed also floated in the air. Zhao Fu walked over and picked up the two items. Moonlight Flower Tear. A flower tear that can be exchanged for 1 million dawn flower tears. Collecting 10 dawn flower tears will unlock the level 5 flower fairy's blessing. Flower devil seed. Flower devils are devils among flowers, and they innately support flowers. Because this is a plant-type flower devil, a single seed can create a group of flower devils. This seed is an ordinary seed and can only create ordinary flower devils. Zhao Fu wasn't too shocked about the moonlight flower tear, but it was the first time he had seen a flower devil seed. A single seed could create a group of flower devils, which was quite useful and could be used to create a large number of flower devils. However, would the flower devils created be the same as the current flower devils? These flower demons looked quite horrifying, and they were definitely the type that would scare little children. However, they weren't too weak either, so they could be nurtured. Perhaps there would be unexpected gains. Zhao Fu smiled as he took out a spirit fruit and handed it to Rose, who was sitting on his shoulder. Rose didn't refuse and waved her hand, putting away the fist-sized spirit fruit. There was also a small spatial ring on her hand, which Zhao Fu had made for the three of them. Rose put it away first and would eat it with hundred and peach when they met. This spirit fruit was a stage 4 spirit fruit and was quite rare. Zhao, there's a very big flower devil in that direction. After putting away the spirit fruit, Rose happily smiled and pointed in that direction as she said. Hearing Rose's words, Zhao Fu couldn't help but feel delighted. According to what she had said, there should be flower devils that were even more powerful than the moonlight flower devils. In the second stage of the Flower World event, these 3 flower devils would definitely make great contributions. Without their senses, No one would be able to find flower devils so quickly and accurately, and they wouldn't have such massive gains as Qin had. Following the direction that Rose had pointed out, Zhao Fu quickly found a massive flower devil. This flower devil was 60 meters tall and had stage 6 strength, which would be quite troublesome to deal with. There was a flower tear on the flower on its head that gave off a black light. Zhao Fu didn't know what grade it was, but it was definitely more powerful than the moonlight flower tear. After fighting for a while, Zhao Fu killed this massive flower devil and obtained 2 items. One was a black flower tear, and the other was a flower devil seed. Zhao Fu didn't know what grade it was, but it was definitely more powerful than the moonlight flower tear. Night flower tear. A flower tear that can be exchanged for 10 million flower tears. Collecting 10 night flower tears will unlock the level 6 flower fairy's blessing. Flower devil seed, a high-quality flower devil seed. This seed can create a group of flower devils, and it is possible to create high-quality flower devils. This made Zhao Fu feel quite delighted. A night flower tear was worth 10 million normal flower tears. How many people could Zhao Fu obtain from this event? That would be at least a few million people. Given how rare flower tears were and how many flower devils had appeared, it was possible that a single person would not be able to obtain a single flower tear. Perhaps not even a single person would be able to obtain a single flower tear. If Zhao Fu obtained 10 million flower tears, that would be equivalent to 10 million people obtaining flower tears, making Zhao Fu feel incredibly delighted. The high-quality flower devil seed was quite good, but it was only a bit better than ordinary flower tears. It was not as delightful as the black flower tear. Chapter 8:10. According to Rose's description, this was definitely a flower devil that surpassed the night flower devil's grade, and it had even higher grade flower tears and flower devil seeds. The night flower devil's flower tears were already worth 10 million ordinary flower tears. If it was a higher grade flower tear, how much would it be worth? Zhao Fu did not waste any time and quickly flew in the direction that Rose was pointing at. A few minutes later, a massive creature appeared in front of Zhao Fu. This flower devil was 500 meters tall and gave off a terrifying aura. It was comparable to a boss monster of a region, and the massive flower on its head had a pearl that gave off a 3-colored light. It was definitely even more valuable than the night flower tear. Zhao Fu looked delighted and immediately rushed up with the Sin Dragon sword. The 3-colored flower devil did not hold back, and it understood how powerful Zhao Fu was. As such, it used its full strength from the start. It waved its hand, causing all sorts of flowers to grow on its arm. As soon as these flowers bloomed, their petals fell off and shot towards Zhao Fu like a torrential storm. Facing such a large-scale attack, Zhao Fu could only stop and unleash his Emperor's domain. A black dragon inscription barrier covered Zhao Fu's body, and the countless petals slammed against the barrier. Clanging sounds could be heard, but they were unable to leave any marks on the barrier. Zhao Fu unleashed his Emperor's domain and continued to rush towards the 3-colored flower devil. The 3-colored flower devil's root-like hands twisted together, forming a cone-like shape. Countless flowers grew out of it, making it look like a spear of flowers, both beautiful and dangerous. The 3-colored flower devil raised the flower spear, and it gave off a powerful aura and a flowery fragrance as it stabbed towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu felt a berserk flower wind blow at him. The flower spear was 50 meters long and gave off a powerful aura of suppression. It looked like the flower spear was about to stab towards Zhao Fu. At that moment, Zhao Fu gripped his sword with both hands and sent his Emperor's power into it. The Sin Dragon sword gave off a terrifying sword light, and Zhao Fu slashed out with immense power. Bang! The beautiful flower spear collided with the terrifying sword light, resulting in a massive explosion. Flower petals and sword chi shot everywhere like a wild gale. Thump! Thump! Thud! Zhao Fu did not move at all in the air, while the massive flower devil took 3 steps back. Each step gave off a massive sound, causing the ground to tremble and leaves to fall. Roar! The three-colored flower devil furiously roared, and the massive flower on its head gave off an intense three-colored light. All of the flowers in the surrounding few kilometers seemed to be summoned and flew towards the three-colored flower devil. Huge flower petals danced around the three-colored flower spirit. There were all kinds of flower petals, white, red, yellow, and blue. All of the flower petals revolved around the flower spirit. Under the illumination of the three-colored light, it was magnificent, and the fragrance of the flowers spread out like a tide. At the same time, a powerful aura spread out like a wild gale. All of the flower devils in the surrounding dozens of kilometers felt quite afraid and instinctively distanced themselves from this region. Even though this flower spirit looked pretty scary, when it came to attacking, it was simply way too beautiful. Looking at the scene before him, Zhao Fu could not help but sigh out. Roar! The three-colored flower devil roared, and the countless flower petals around it formed a massive wave that flooded towards Zhao Fu. Sensing this terrifying power, Zhao Fu could not help but become serious. The Qin seal within his body gave off countless traces of black aura, providing Zhao Fu with even more power. Zhao Fu raised the Sin Dragon sword with one hand, and a terrifying sword aura rushed into the sky. Sword Qi swept out like a wild gale, and the Sin Dragon sword gave off a terrifying sword light that was dozens of meters long. As the flower tide approached, Zhao Fu slashed down with all of his strength. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the massive flower tide was split apart by the massive sword light. The flower tide collapsed, and countless flower petals filled the sky. The massive sword Qi from the sword light forced the three-colored flower devil back another 4 or 5 steps, and a long gash appeared on its body. At that moment, Zhao Fu did not waste this opportunity. He turned into a ray of light and rushed in front of the three-colored flower devil, stabbing his sword towards its heart. The flower devil was given a big fright, but it was too late. The gigantic sword light instantly pierced through its chest, mincing its heart into pieces. A large hole that was more than 10 meters wide appeared in its chest. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the massive flower devil's body collapsed to the ground and turned into countless motes of light before dissipating. There were 3 things on the ground. One was a flower tear that gave off a 3-colored light, one was a golden flower devil seed, and one was a 2-meter-wide peony-like flower. Fantasy flower tear. A flower tear that can be exchanged for 100 million flower tears. Collecting 10 fantasy flower tears can unlock the level 7 flower fairy's blessing. Flower devil seed. A rare flower devil seed that can be used to create a group of flower devils, and it is possible to create rare grade flower devils. Flower domain. This item has a flower domain, and flowers within this domain will never wither. The range of the flower domain is 10,000 kilometers, and it is beneficial to the growth of flower devils. A fantasy flower tear was worth 100 million flower tears, and Zhao Fu could not help but grin. Rare grade flower devil seeds were already quite good, and Zhao Fu was quite satisfied. Finally, the flower domain. If the range of the flower domain was a bit larger, Great Qin would not have to use the flower fairy's blessing anymore. However, it was also quite good to nurture flower devils. With the flower domain's help, the flower devils would be able to quickly grow. After putting these 3 items away, Zhao Fu turned and asked Rose, who was sitting on his shoulder, "Can you still sense flower devils?" Rose closed her eyes and carefully sensed her surroundings before stretching out her little hand and pointing in a direction as she said, "There's a little flower devil there." Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt quite disappointed. He went over and saw that it was just a violet flower devil, so he killed it and took its flower tear before continuing to search for flower devils. Time gradually passed, and the night gradually faded. A new day had arrived. That night, Zhao Fu killed 19 violet flower devils, 90 dawn flower devils, 8 night flower devils, and 2 fantasy flower devils. Now, it was time to go back and tally up Qin's gains. The flower world would end at 12 a.m. that night. After Zhao Fu returned to Qin City, Bai Qi and Gunia returned to Qin City to tally up their gains. In total, they had killed 129 violet flower devils, 40 dawn flower devils, 5 night flower devils, and 1 fantasy flower devil. All of Qin City's residents and soldiers had worked together, and they had obtained 3.2 billion flower tears. This was a shocking number, but it was mainly because of their numbers and the fact that they had 3 times the number of flower tears. Chapter 8:11. Now that he had so many flower tears, he could exchange them for many items. Zhao Fu chose between professions and cities, and in the end, he chose the professions. After all, special professions were more important to Qin, and special cities had to be developed slowly. Zhao Fu went to the exchange stone steel and exchanged the massive amount of flower tears for flower tear points, preparing to exchange for the human ghost profession. System announcement. The ghost world has not opened yet, so you cannot exchange for it. System announcement. You currently have flower tier points and can only exchange for items in the Flower World event. If you wait until the Ghost World opens the next day, your flower tier points will automatically become ghost points at a 10:1 ratio. Zhao Fu immediately felt that he had been scammed. He could not exchange for professions, and he would have to wait until the next day. Moreover, his flower tier points would be reduced to a 10:1 ratio. Zhao Fu felt that he had wasted an entire night, as none of the items in the Flower World event caught Zhao Fu's eye. This caused Zhao Fu's heart to become cold, and he could only sigh. If he did not use his flower tier points now, he would have a great advantage in the Ghost World event the next day. Even though the 10:1 ratio was a bit of a scam, if Qin obtained enough flower tier points today, Qin would have a massive amount of ghost points on the next day. When that time came, Qin would be able to exchange for professions, so it was worth it to pay for it now. Zhao Fu once again mustered up his confidence, and he had the soldiers and residents of Qin rest for a while before continuing to collect flower tears. Time gradually passed, and Zhao Fu and Rose continuously killed flower devils, obtaining high-grade flower tears. They killed 2 illusion flower devils and obtained illusion flower tears, flower devil seeds, and flower domain. However, it was now afternoon, and the sun was setting in the west. The setting sun dyed half the sky golden, and the ground was covered in a golden coat. At this moment, Zhao Fu returned and did a quick count of the flower tears. At this moment, one of the 3 weapons on the flower tears rankings had disappeared. It was the 3rd-ranked Chilling Moon Divine Bow. It seemed that others had also encountered some opportunities. Zhao Fu did not pay too much mind to this. He rested for a bit before bringing Rose to kill flower demons. Flower demons continuously died at Zhao Fu's hands, and Zhao Fu continuously collected flower tears. It was around 9 a.m., and the bright moon hung high in the sky, gently illuminating the world. At that moment, Rose suddenly pointed in a direction and said, "Zhao, there's a very, 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 very big flower demon in that direction. It's very scary. Do you want to go?" Hearing this, Zhao Fu was delighted because this flower demon could be even stronger than a dream flower demon. This meant that he would obtain a great harvest, so of course, Zhao Fu had to go. After flying for a while, Zhao Fu arrived at his destination, which was a valley. Zhao Fu did not find any flower demons here, but he saw a massive flower growing on the ground. This flower looked like a white rose, and it gave off a faint white light. Under the moonlight, it gave off a simple and elegant aura. What made Zhao Fu feel even more shocked was that at the center of the flower, there was a rainbow-colored flower tear. This was definitely a dream flower demon. As Zhao Fu approached, the ground started to tremble as a flower demon crawled out. It was 1,000 meters tall and gave off a mountain-toppling and sea-draining aura. Its strength surpassed that of a region lord and was comparable to an aquatic beast king. Facing this terrifying power, Zhao Fu became serious because this kind of power would not be easy to deal with. The rainbow-colored flower demon stood up and roared at Silver before waving its large hand, causing a massive gale to appear as it attacked Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu had the flower demon hide in his embrace before descending, dodging this attack. He then rushed up and slashed out with his sword, causing a sharp cold light to cut open a small wound on the rainbow-colored flower demon's body. Countless flowers grew out of this small wound, and the wound quickly healed. It was as if nothing had happened at all. This rainbow-colored flower demon was 10 times stronger than a normal dream flower demon, and it would not be easy to deal with. Zhao Fu did not hesitate and directly used the Qin Seal's power, exploding out with all of its power. A terrifying demonic flame erupted around his body. At that moment, the rainbow flower devil once again attacked. Countless flowers grew out of its body, and they started to spin on their own. They left the branches and flew towards Zhao Fu like sharp frisbees. Thousands of flowers flew out, giving off a terrifying aura. Zhao Fu used all of his strength to defend his emperor's domain, but under this ferocious attack, he was forced back dozens of meters, and some cracks appeared on his emperor's domain. Zhao Fu's emperor's domain was unleashed by his sovereign bloodline and had the effects of a domain pill, making it incredibly tough. If it was an ordinary king's domain, it would not have been able to withstand this attack. Arg! The Qin seal within his body continuously trembled, and Zhao Fu started to use the power of the other city lord seals. A powerful aura once again spread out from Zhao Fu's body, and Zhao Fu raised the Sin Dragon sword with both hands, giving off a brilliant sword light. He slashed out, causing 5 water dragons to roar as they rushed towards the rainbow-colored flower demon. Facing Zhao Fu's terrifying attack, the rainbow-colored flower demon roared and waved its hands, causing a formless energy to spread out. All of the flower petals in the surrounding dozens of kilometers quickly gathered, forming a river of flower petals above the rainbow-colored flower demon's head that met the 5 water dragons. Boom! The river of flower petals and the 5 water dragons collided, resulting in a massive explosion. A shock wave blasted out, causing flower petals and water to fly everywhere, making it seem as if it was raining flowers and water. Suddenly, Zhao Fu appeared behind the rainbow-colored flower demon and ferociously slashed out, causing a 100-meter-long sword light to heavily land on the rainbow-colored flower demon's body. The rainbow-colored flower demon stumbled and fell to the ground, a deep gash on its back. Roar! The rainbow-colored flower demon howled in pain as the white rose on its head gave off terrifying ripples. Immediately, thousands of white rays of light shot out and continuously spun, and the terrifying power started to slice through everything. Zhao Fu was given a big fright and used all of his strength to unleash his emperor's domain as he dodged. The terrifying white rays of light cut the entire valley into countless pieces, and no matter if it was rocks or trees, they were all sliced apart without any resistance. Zhao Fu crawled out from a pile of rocks, and there was a trace of blood at his lips. His shoulder was also dyed red with blood. Zhao Fu had also been hit by the white rays of light, and his emperor's domain had only lasted for a few seconds before shattering. His shoulder had also been hit. By now, the rainbow-colored flower demon had just been heavily injured by Zhao Fu and had used such a powerful yoi attack, so it was quite weak. Chapter 8:12. Zhao Fu already recognized the first 3 items. One was a rainbow-colored flower tear, one was a violet flower devil seed, and one was a massive rose-like flower, which was the flower domain. The 4th item was a gray plant orb, but Zhao Fu did not know what it was. Mythical flower tear. A flower tear that can be exchanged for 1 billion flower tears. Collecting 10 mythical flower tears can unlock the level 8 flower fairy's blessing. Flower Devil Seed, a Lord Grade Flower Devil Seed. This seed can create a group of flower devils, and it is possible to create Lord Grade Flower Devils. Flower Domain. This item comes with a flower domain. Flowers within this domain will never wither, and the range of the domain is 100,000 kilometers, which is beneficial to the growth of flower devils. World Flower Seed. This seed contains a trace of source energy. It can grow into the world's most beautiful flowers, and its fragrance is the world's most enchanting flower fragrance. After looking at the 4 items' information, Zhao Fu could not help but feel delighted. It turned out that these rainbow-colored flower tears were mythical flower tears, and each one was worth 1 billion flower tears. In other words, Zhao Fu had obtained more flower tears than 1 billion people. Qin and the others had only collected 3 billion flower tears in a single night, and Zhao Fu had obtained 1/3 of them. Zhao Fu was quite delighted about the Lord Grade Flower Devil Seed. Lord Grade Flower Devils were destined to be powerful, and they were dozens of times more powerful than rare Flower Devil Seed. Zhao Fu wondered what the Flower Devils would be like, and he was quite curious about them. Apart from the range of 100,000 kilometers, there were no other changes to the 3rd flower domain. Zhao Fu looked around before looking at the 4th item. The World Flowers information made Zhao Fu feel incredibly delighted. World flowers were incredibly rare in the world, and they were things that could not be bought with money. They were incomparably beautiful, and their enchanting fragrance was the best in the world. They were one of the 7 wonders of the world. Of course, apart from their beauty, the world flower had 2 other uses. The first was to produce flower tears, which could produce 7 flower tears per week. These flower tears were not event items but epic-grade materials that could be used to forge epic-grade equipment. There was also the world pollen, which had a heaven-defying effect. It could make one's appearance remain forever youthful. In other words, one would be able to maintain their original appearance and not age. This was similar to a godly pill, the Eternal Face Pill. The Eternal Face Pill's effect was to prevent one's appearance from aging, but it was an incredibly precious item that could not be bought with money. Because of its special effects, all women in the heaven-awakened world madly pursued it. Zhao Fu had seen many such quests on the Heaven Spirit Steel, such as exchanging 10 saint armaments for Eternal Face Pills, 100 cities for Eternal Face Pills, supreme arts and techniques for Eternal Face Pills, and Saint Realm experts were willing to work for Eternal Face Pills for 10 years. From this, one could see how precious the Eternal Beauty Pill was. The World Pollen, which had the same effects, was also incomparably precious. The World Flower was the reason why Zhao Fu was most surprised. With it, he could get countless unimaginable benefits, which would be of great help to Qin. However, Zhao Fu had only obtained a World Flower Seed, and it would take some time to nurture it before it would bloom into a beautiful world flower. Zhao Fu grinned as he put away everything. It was now 11 a.m., and there was still an hour before the ghost world would open. Zhao Fu quickly returned and started to calculate Qin's gains for the day. Qin's gains were also quite shocking. He had obtained 13.5 billion flower tears, and even if it was a 10:1 ratio, Qin would still have 1.5 billion flower tears left. This did not include the flower tears that Zhao Fu had obtained. If he included the flower tears that Zhao Fu had obtained, he would have 1.5 billion flower tears left. Zhao Fu had also exchanged the myth flower tears for normal flower tears. Because he only had one, it was not very useful. However, Qin had already gathered 10 fantasy flower tears, which could unlock the Level 7 Flower Fairy's Blessing. Level 7 Flower Fairy's Blessing. Effect: permanent. Description: the Flower Fairy's most beautiful blessing. The growth of flowers in your territory will be increased by 1000%, and the withering of flowers will be slowed by 1000%. It has the Fragrant Flower World effect, and can help all people cultivate and get rid of their inner demons. A fantasy flower tear was worth 100 million flower tears. Zhao Fu had spent 10 fantasy flower tears not only to beautify Qin's territory but also to unlock the level 6 flower fairy's blessing. This was because the level 6 flower fairy's blessing was permanent. However, it did not have the fragrant flower world effect, which was what Zhao Fu wanted the most. As long as they were within Qin's territory, everyone would receive the buff, regardless of whether they were soldiers or commoners. They would all be able to cultivate faster and get rid of their inner demons. This powerful buff that ignored professions and numbers was something that Zhao Fu could not obtain. As such, Zhao Fu was willing to spend 1 billion flower tears. However, it was a pity that he could only obtain 1 mythical flower tear. From its description, there was also the level 8 flower fairy's blessing, which was most likely the final blessing of the flower fairy's blessing. It would definitely be much more powerful than the level 7 flower fairy's blessing. Zhao Fu came to the center of Qin City, and the 10 fantasy flower tears gave off 3 colored lights and floated into the sky before fusing together. Immediately, a rainbow-colored wave of light spread out as countless flower petals fell from the sky, accompanied by countless motes of light. The scene was incredibly beautiful, as if it was a dream, and a figure gradually appeared within the light. She had an exquisite face and long, jet-black hair. Her skin was snow-white and tender, and she wore clothes made of flower petals. There was a pure smile on her face. She was the flower fairy, and when Qin had activated the level 3 flower fairy's blessing, Zhao Fu had seen her once. The flower fairy stretched out a hand, and a pink orb appeared in her hand. The orb floated into the air before exploding, and a pink shock wave spread out, covering the entirety of Great Qin in just a few moments. At that moment, the flower fairy smiled as she looked at Zhao Fu. Her gaze was incredibly clear and pure, like a pure white lotus. A long time ago, Zhao Fu had been certain that the flower fairy was alive, and now, it seemed that she definitely had her own life and thoughts, just like an ordinary girl. The flower fairy lightly floated down towards Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu understood that there were other blessings. Back then, Zhao Fu had received a flower's embrace blessing. The girl floated down and stretched out her white, slender hands, and lightly hugged Zhao Fu before lightly kissing Zhao Fu's forehead. Zhao Fu could clearly feel the softness of her fragrant lips, and a pink lipstick mark appeared on Zhao Fu's forehead before entering Zhao Fu's body and disappearing. System announcement. You have obtained the flower fairy's kiss, and it will be easier for you to be liked by fairies, and your charm will be greatly increased. Chapter 8:13. As this system announcement sounded out in his mind, Zhao Fu felt a rainbow-colored energy enter his body, causing his body to feel incredibly comfortable. At the same time, Zhao Fu felt a faint fragrance coming from his body. After kissing Zhao Fu's forehead, the flower fairy lightly let go of Zhao Fu and smiled before flying into the sky. Zhao Fu watched as the flower fairy disappeared. Feeling the young woman's kiss, Zhao Fu couldn't help but feel complicated and confused. He wasn't sure if the flower fairy really had her own life or if she was a product of some sort of event. The flower fairy's body started to become hazy and was about to turn into motes of light and disappear. However, at that moment, a black insect crawled out of Zhao Fu's clothes and stretched out its little head. Its large black eyes looked at the flower fairy curiously. Following this, it raised its head and spat out a few thin threads. These threads quickly flew towards the flower fairy and weakly wrapped around her. With how thin these threads were, it seemed as if they couldn't even wrap around an insect. However, something unexpected happened. The flower fairy's body, which had become hazy, once again became clear and was pulled in front of Zhao Fu by some sort of energy. Seeing this, Zhao Fu was completely dumbfounded. He had never thought that something like this would happen. The little black bug, crawling on his chest, happily leaped towards the young woman, and the young woman happily caught the little bug as it leaped over. The little bug was incredibly happy in the young woman's hands, and it continuously rolled about. Its relationship with the little bug was much better than it was with Zhao Fu. After all, Zhao Fu was the little bug's owner, and yet he was being ignored. Zhao Fu looked at this scene in surprise, and after waiting for a while, he found that the flower fairy still hadn't disappeared, as if she really was there. System announcement. You have used illegal methods to force the flower fairy to remain in the world. The flower fairy's stats have been greatly reduced, and all of her abilities have disappeared. Note: only a level 8 blessing can cause the flower fairy to remain in the world. Ha ha ha! Zhao Fu could not help but laugh. He had never thought that something like this would happen. The Tier 8 blessing had actually been left behind. The Tier 8 blessing required 10 mythic flower tiers to activate, and it was already the final blessing. Moreover, even though the flower fairy didn't have any abilities and her stats had been reduced, that didn't mean she couldn't recover. The flower fairy could still recover her original power and abilities. However, it would take some time for her to recover. However, Zhao Fu felt that it was all worth it, as the flower fairy was a pleasant surprise. Even now, he did not know what kind of existence she was, but as the ultimate reward, she definitely would not be weak. Can you tell me some information? Zhao Fu looked at the smiling flower fairy, and could not help but ask. He wanted to obtain some information about her so that he could understand her better. However, the young girl raised her head and looked at Zhao Fu with pure eyes, as if she didn't know what Zhao Fu was talking about or what Zhao Fu meant. Seeing this, Zhao Fu felt quite confused and asked a few more questions. In the end, he could only helplessly say that the young girl had no memories at all, and her mind was completely blank. She was like a newborn child and could not speak. After thinking for a while, Zhao Fu called Asani over and told her to take care of the flower fairy. Their personalities were quite similar and they were about the same age, so it would be quite easy for them to get along with each other. The little worm had always been sticking to the flower fairy, so it also went over. Zhao Fu thought about it and understood why the little worm liked the flower fairy so much. Even though the little worm was only a worm right now, it would become a butterfly in the future. Butterflies liked flowers, so there was nothing wrong with it liking the flower fairy. It was about to be 12 a.m., and the ghost event was about to begin. Zhao Fu waited next to the exchange stone steel. Because time was of the essence, he could only deal with the items he had obtained later. Now that he was in the ghost world, Zhao Fu would be able to exchange for the profession he wanted. Zhao Fu had been waiting for an entire day, and he felt quite nervous. Now, the 3 Saint-grade equipment for the 10,000 Flower Festival had already been exchanged for. Qin Zhao was not the only one who had received great opportunities. Others had also received great opportunities. Even though he had not exchanged for anything during the 10,000 Flower Festival, Zhao Fu was already quite satisfied. He had obtained all sorts of rare treasures. Suddenly, the entire world fell silent, as if it was deathly silent. All creatures instinctively sensed something and curled up in fear. Traces of ghostly qi continuously rose up from the ground, and a cold and eerie aura spread throughout the world. The bright moon in the sky gradually became gray and gave off a ghostly aura, making it seem like a ghostly moon. Roar, 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 mournful howls sounded throughout the world as terrifying ghosts crawled up from the ground, and ghosts flew about in the sky. They covered the entire sky, and the entire world seemed to have become a world of ghosts. The second stage of the Ghost Festival was the Ghost World, and there were hundreds of times more ghosts than the previous stages. There were ghosts everywhere, and there was no need to search for them like before. However, it was also more dangerous, and if one did not have any strength, they would definitely die to ghost. Zhao Fu stood in front of the exchange stone steel. The instant the Ghost Festival began, Zhao Fu's massive flower tier points were converted into ghost points. Zhao Fu instantly exchanged for the 2 professions, spending 1.4 billion ghost points and leaving nearly 100 million ghost points. Zhao Fu had long since decided on these two professions: ghost people and ghost eyes. Ghost people was the most powerful profession out of the three, and Zhao Fu definitely wanted it. As for why he chose ghost eyes, he felt that even though it was only ranked third, its detection stats were quite useful. Now that he only had so many ghost points, Zhao Fu could only choose two professions that suited Qin the most. The remaining ghost god soldier profession could only be exchanged for with the ghost points he had obtained today. Of course, Zhao Fu did not want to give up and had to obtain it. Zhao Fu went to the city god temple and found that the city god, Dark North Red Autumn, the black and white impermanences, as well as the minotaurs and horsefaces, were already waiting there. The city god temple had received countless offerings and had reached level 10. As the city god, Dark North Red Autumn completely obeyed Zhao Fu. After all, it was Zhao Fu who had made him the city god, not the underworld. He could now condense a 100-meter-tall city god statue that had powerful evil-suppressing power, and he could use coins to hire 10,000 minotaurs and horseface soldiers. Of course, Zhao Fu had come here to deal with the ghost world. Back then, Zhao Fu had used the 10,000 ghost warding talismans and reversal talismans to attract countless ghosts and continuously kill them to obtain a large number of ghost points. Now, Zhao Fu did not have the evil warding talisman and reversal talisman, and even if he did, he would not use them because their effects would be too weak. Chapter 8:14. However, Zhao Fu had an even better idea, which was to rely on the black and white impermanences. After all, the black and white impermanences came from the Hell World, and even though they were part of the Death Race, they specialized in suppressing ghosts, so they were quite suitable to deal with ghosts. The black and white impermanences came from a large family in the Hell World and had many methods, such as the terrifying forbidden technique from before, which was summoning the Six Paths demon images. Everyone had witnessed the destructive power of that technique. It was a pity that he had been instantly killed by the Sky Desolation Azure Dragon, and the Six Paths demon images had memorized Zhao Fu's aura, making it impossible to summon him again. Otherwise, Qin would have another powerful method. Your Majesty! As soon as Zhao Fu was carried into the city god temple, everyone knelt down. Zhao Fu lightly nodded and looked at everyone as he asked, "Are you ready? Did you miss anything?" "Your Majesty, don't worry, we're ready. If anything goes wrong, you can punish us," He Xiaojie said as she flirtatiously smiled. She emphasized the word punish, and Bai Xiaoya's face became slightly red as she stood there. Zhao Fu rolled his eyes at her and did not say anything as he brought them to the Great Wall. The Great Wall had already made preparations to ward off ghosts, as the Ghost Festival itself was a very dangerous festival. In order to avoid any unnecessary deaths, the residents did not participate and instead stayed indoors. Many of the generals had already arrived, and seeing that everything was ready, Zhao Fu ordered people to start moving. Soldiers started to pour buckets of blood onto the Great Wall. The blood was mainly from beasts, but there were also some humans, filling 100,000 buckets. As the blood was poured, the stench of blood became incredibly dense. Following this, a magic formation was activated, causing the blood to roil as traces of blood-red qi rose up. This was called the blood-devouring magic formation. Even though these ghosts were all products of activity, they still retained the habits of ordinary ghosts and had a strong desire for blood. The blood-devouring magic formation's effect was to increase the attractiveness of blood and attract countless ghosts. Roar, roar, roar. As soon as the blood-devouring magic formation was activated, countless ghosts smelled the scent of blood and howled as they excitedly rushed over, as if there was the most delicious food. The tens of thousands upon thousands of ghosts quickly converged into a massive ghost tide that covered an area of 500 kilometers in every direction, surging toward the Great Wall like a raging river. At the same time, the wandering specters in the sky were attracted by the blood, and began to converge, creating a massive wave of ghosts that filled the sky and blotted out the sun as they surged toward the Great Wall. The two waves of ghosts merged into one, surging toward the Great Wall with mountain-toppling, sea-draining energy. Heaven-shaking, earth-shattering, and terrifying fluctuations spread out for tens of thousands of kilometers in all directions. At this moment, Qin had already made his move. Within a massive square formation, city god Dark North Red Autumn stood at the center, while the black and white impermanences stood on either side. Outside of the formation stood 10,000 oxheads and horsefaces, while at the outermost layer stood countless Qin soldiers. There were 100 million of them. Woo! City god Qin, Dark North Red Autumn, has received orders from His Highness Qin to open the Ghost Gate. Boundless ghost-capturing power, assist me and return peace to the world. Dark North Red Autumn roared as he gave off waves of golden light. He became 100 meters tall and was filled with a dignified and solemn aura, making him seem like a true god. Countless traces of ghostly qi rushed over, but they dissipated without being able to resist at all. The black and white impermanences cut open their palms and pressed them against the ground, causing the massive magic formation on the ground to start to spin, and a massive wave of cold and eerie aura spread out. The 10,000 oxheads and horsefaces exploded out with powerful auras, and their bodies gave off countless traces of ghostly qi as they simultaneously yelled, "We are the ghost servants of the underworld, and we have received orders from His Highness Qin to use our bodies to invite the Ghost Gate to descend." Boom! After the 10,000 oxheads and horsefaces yelled, their ghostly qi was instantly absorbed by the magic formation on the ground. An explosion sounded out as ghostly qi from the underworld erupted out of the ground like a volcano, shooting into the sky with massive power and forming a massive pillar of ghostly qi. The surrounding Qin soldiers were already prepared, and they all squatted down and pressed their hands against the ground, sending all of their power into the magic formation. Boom! 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 Explosions sounded out as the pillar of ghostly qi continuously expanded. It was now hundreds of thousands of meters wide, and the dense and eerie ghostly qi caused people to tremble. Within the massive pillar of ghostly qi, a massive stone gate gradually appeared. There were countless ghosts carved on the massive stone gate, and it looked incredibly ancient. It gave off a dignified and powerful aura, and it gave off a mountain-like might. Seeing the massive stone gate in the sky, the countless ghosts rushing towards Qin instinctively felt terror, and some of them even wanted to escape. Ghost Gate open! Dark North Red Autumn raised his spear and roared, and the stone gate in the sky, which gave off a terrifying might, gradually opened. A massive suction force exploded out like a black hole, seeming as if the entire world was going to be sucked in. Countless ghosts' excitement turned into horror, and they quickly retreated. However, they were still forcefully sucked into the stone door. At the same time, massive rocks were carried into the sky like gravel, and trees were uprooted and sucked into the stone door. The scene was extremely terrifying. No matter if it was the ordinary ghosts or the terrifying sky ghosts, they were unable to resist at all and were all sucked into the stone gate. The stone gate was like a gaping mouth that devoured everything. At the same time, there was a barrier around the stone door that sucked the ghosts in. The ghost treasure sacks were cut off and fell to the ground, and it seemed as if it was raining sacks. However, in Zhao Fu's eyes, it was raining money. These ghost treasure sacks piled up into a mountain, and even if they were useless to Zhao Fu, he could sell them for countless money. Zhao Fu's ghost points madly increased, and soon, he would be able to exchange for the remaining profession. The terrifying ripples attracted countless powerful ghosts, and there were at least hundreds of ghost generals. These ghost generals had the power of the slaughter ghost from before, which was the power of the slaughtering ghost sword in Zhao Fu's hand. These monsters' levels were quite high, and their intelligence was not low, so they naturally would not get too close. If the ghost gate was too far away, it would not be effective against ghosts. As such, they needed Qin's city lord to kill them. However, these ghost generals only had the power of a basic city lord, and some were even a bit weaker. It would be no problem for a great city lord to kill them. Chapter 8:15. These ghost commanders all looked like muscular men. They had a pair of pure gray eyes and were clad in armor with ghastly qi around them. They held different weapons, and both their armor and weapons were gray. Moreover, they were so gray that they glowed, giving off an eerie coldness. They only had the strength of a city lord, and if it was before, they would have been able to sweep through Qin City. However, if it wasn't for the fact that they were too far away, Zhao Fu would have been able to deal with them by himself. Zhao Fu looked at a sword-wielding ghost commander and took out the Sin Dragon sword. A massive and sharp sword light gave off a terrifying sword wind as it slashed towards the ghost commander. The ghost commander roared and gave off countless traces of ghostly qi. It raised its sword with both hands and vigorously slashed out a gray sword light towards Zhao Fu. Bang! An explosion sounded out as the two sword lights collided. The gray sword light was shattered by Zhao Fu's sword light, turning into motes of gray light and dissipating. Zhao Fu's sword light continued towards the ghost commander. The ghost commander was given a big fright and blocked with its sword, but it was still sent flying 10 or so meters. By now, the ghost commander knew that it was not a match for Zhao Fu, so it started to run. Zhao Fu chased up and ferociously slashed out, sending the ghost commander flying again. He did not give the ghost commander any chance to retaliate and continued to chase after it, slicing off its head. After the ghost commander died, 3 items dropped. The first was a ghost treasure bag, which was a small gray cloth bag. It would most likely be able to drop a low-grade legendary grade equipment. The second was a square-shaped stone that was 15 centimeters wide. This stone was a complete city god stone. The previous city god stones had all been fragments, and they could only be constructed with 10 fragments. However, this was a complete city god stone, so there was no need to collect 10 fragments. However, its quality was quite low, and it was only a silver-grade city god temple. Zhao Fu was quite familiar with these 2 items, so he did not look at them too much. However, the third item made Zhao Fu feel quite curious. It was a palm-sized seal that was gray in color and seemed to be made of jade. It felt cold to the touch, and there was a taotai engraved on it. It was incredibly lively, and the seal itself gave off traces of ghostly qi. It gave off a powerful aura, and no one dared to approach it. Ghost Commander Seal. A Ghost Commander Seal, a treasure of the underworld that is formed from the convergence of boundless Yin Qi. It can command 100,000 Yin soldiers to work for it in conquering the underworld. Seeing the Ghost Commander Seal, Zhao Fu could not stop himself from laughing out. This was definitely a prized artifact. It would be very beneficial to Qin. Ghost soldiers were transformed from dead soldiers. Because they were transformed into ghosts, they no longer had their memories from when they were alive. They only had battle instincts, and they were extremely powerful. Zhao Fu could turn Qin's dead soldiers into ghost soldiers and use the Ghost Commander Seal to command them. Although they didn't have any memories or emotions now, as their strength increased, they would recover one day. This was equivalent to living another life. With this, Qin's dead soldiers could be turned into ghost soldiers and continue to work for Qin. This would make up for the regret that Zhao Fu felt towards their death. This was definitely a treasure that would be extremely useful to Great Qin. People would definitely die in battle. This was something that no one could change. However, with this Ghost Commander Seal, Great Qin would be able to preserve many of its soldiers and reduce the number of casualties. Zhao Fu smiled as he put away the 3 treasures and looked at Bai Qi and Gunia. They had also successfully killed ghost commanders and obtained 3 treasures, and the 3 of them returned to the city walls. Zhao Fu looked at the ghost generals expectantly to see what treasures they would drop, but he was slightly disappointed. They only dropped ghost treasure chests and city god stone shards, and there were no ghost seals. However, a ghost commander seal could allow one to command 100,000 ghost soldiers, so they should be satisfied. It would be too greedy and unrealistic to hope that a few hundred ghost generals would drop it. The surrounding ghosts were all devoured by the ghost gate, and the scene looked like a whale sucking in water. The countless ghosts were unable to resist at all, and the ghost treasure pouches were piled up into small mountains. There were perhaps hundreds of millions of them. This completely made up for Zhao Fu's disappointment. After this ghost festival, Qin would once again become rich, and all sorts of materials, skills, and equipment would increase exponentially. Because there were no more ghosts, the ghost gate was temporarily closed. However, the stone gate that gave off a terrifying might did not disappear, and everyone continued to maintain it as they waited for the next wave of ghosts to come towards Qin. Zhao Fu had killed so many creatures and collected 100,000 bottles of blood to create a blood-devouring magic formation. Its effects were not limited to this. It would continuously attract ghosts, and as the bloody aura spread out, even more ghosts would be attracted over. As expected, after a while, a large number of ghosts ferociously flooded towards the city walls. The 10,000 ghosts were like a tsunami, causing all of the creatures in the region to feel incredibly terrified. Boom! An explosion sounded out as the massive stone gate was once again opened, exploding out with a powerful suction force. Countless ghosts were sucked into the stone gate, and the ghost treasure pouches once again fell like rain. If anyone else saw this, they would be incredibly shocked. It would be incredibly difficult for others to obtain a treasure pouch, and they would have to risk their lives. However, Qin had not suffered any casualties, and the ghost treasure pouches fell like rain, making others feel incredibly envious. A look of delight appeared on Zhao Fu's face because he had discovered another 2 ghost commanders. At the same time, there were 200 or 300 ghost generals heading towards Qin. Without needing Zhao Fu to give any orders, everyone started to move. Ordinary city lords were responsible for killing ghost generals, while Zhao Fu, Bai Qi, and Gunia were responsible for killing ghost commanders and obtaining ghost commander seals. Zhao Fu obtained another 2 ghost commander seals, giving him a total of 5 ghost commanders. Qin could now convert 500,000 ghost soldiers and make them obey Qin. Countless ghosts were once again devoured by the ghost gates, and the ghost gates temporarily closed, waiting for the next wave of ghosts to arrive. A while later, another wave of ghosts was attracted over. What made Zhao Fu even more delighted was that apart from the 4 ghost commanders, there was an even more powerful ghost that was covered in ghostly qi. Only its blood-red eyes could be seen, and it gave off a terrifying aura. This was a ghost that was even more powerful than a ghost commander, which was the ghost marquis. It was a marquis of the underworld and had the strength of 10 city lords. It could fight to a draw with Bai Qi and Gunia, so Zhao Fu had to personally deal with it. Zhao Fu turned into a ray of light and shot towards the ghost marquis, while the others charged at the ghost commanders and ghost generals. The stone gate continued to open, and another battle began. Roar! The ghost marquis was already incredibly powerful, and Zhao Fu became serious. He rushed up and the Sin Dragon's sword gave off a brilliant sword light as he raised his hand and a massive water dragon flew towards the ghost marquis. Bang! Chapter 8:16. At that moment, Zhao Fu shot through the water like a flying sword and arrived in front of the ghost monkey. He raised his sword with both hands and gave off a heaven-splitting aura as he slashed down towards the ghost monkey. Shing! The ghost monkey gripped his spear with both hands and blocked in front of him. The Sin Dragon's sword collided with the spear, resulting in the sound of metal clashing. The 2 of them clashed, resulting in a shockwave that caused the ground to collapse. Zhao Fu gripped his sword with both hands and pressed down on the ghost monkey. The ghost monkey roared and exploded out with an even denser ghostly chi as he raised his hands and sent Zhao Fu flying back. Seeing Zhao Fu fly backwards, the ghost monkey grasped this opportunity and gripped his spear with one hand. He stabbed out, sending out a sharp gray aura that contained shocking piercing power towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's gaze became cold as he slashed out with his sword, sending out an arc of light that destroyed the gray aura, causing it to dissipate into traces of gray aura. Ha! The ghost monkey roared as he stamped off the ground, causing the ground to crack. His body shot towards Zhao Fu like a cannonball, his spear stabbing towards Zhao Fu's throat. Zhao Fu sent his emperor's power into the Sin Dragon Sword, and a clear sword hum sounded out as the Sin Dragon Sword gave off a large amount of sword light, causing a sharp sword wind to blow out. Zhao Fu swept out horizontally, the Sin Dragon Sword giving off a brilliant sword light and a boundless sword chi as it slashed out like a bolt of lightning. A massive destructive power blasted out, and the ghost monkey was slashed into the ground, opening up a large crater. Arg! Within the crater, the ghost monkey seemed to be completely enraged, and the ghostly chi around his body shrunk, revealing his pale white skin. His aura was even more powerful than before, and his might was something that ordinary city lords would find difficult to defend against. Boom! The ghost monkey swept out with his spear, sending out a massive crescent that blasted through the air towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu flipped in the air, dodging this crescent. He stepped off the air and shot towards the ghost monkey like a meteor, sending a massive amount of power into the Sin Dragon Sword. Roar! 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 3 massive dragons' roars sounded out as the Sin Dragon Sword instantly condensed into 3 100-meter-long water dragons that gave off shocking auras and terrifying power as they slammed towards the ghost monkey. Boom! An explosion rang out in all directions as the 3 water dragons smashed into the monkey. For a moment, the ground collapsed, and a crater that was dozens of meters wide appeared. Smoke billowed in all directions, obscuring one's vision. Suddenly, thousands of gray swallows flew out from the smoke-filled region towards Zhao Fu. They were incredibly fast, and they arrived in front of Zhao Fu in the blink of an eye. Zhao Fu was given a big fright and hurriedly unleashed his emperor's domain. Bang bang bang! The flying swallows slammed into the black dragon inscription barrier, resulting in massive explosions. Each flying swallow contained enough power to kill a Stage 1 soldier, and thousands of flying swallows exploded, causing the sky to be covered by a gray light and ghostly chi. The ghostly chi slowly dissipated, and Zhao Fu stood in the air, completely unscathed. However, just as his emperor's domain shattered, it turned into countless motes of black light and disappeared. A figure suddenly appeared in front of Zhao Fu, stabbing towards Zhao Fu with a spear. Zhao Fu blocked with his sword, blocking the ghost monkey's spear. Just as he was about to attack, the ghostly chi behind the ghost monkey condensed and a ghostly image appeared, slamming towards Zhao Fu and sending him flying 10 or so meters. Zhao Fu felt an immense pain in his chest, as if he had been hit by a hammer. Zhao Fu coldly harumphed and raised the Sin Dragon Sword, causing a sword light to shoot into the sky. Countless traces of water vapor gathered together, forming water swords. The 10,000 swords hung in the air, giving off a massive sword aura. Swish, swish, swish! Zhao Fu slashed out with the Sin Dragon Sword, causing the countless water swords to descend. The ghost monkey was given a big fright and unleashed a gray energy barrier. Bang! The countless water swords descended, causing the gray energy barrier to explode. The ghost monkey was given a big fright and continuously spun his spear, making it look like a spinning disc, blocking the countless water swords. A searing white light shot into the sky, causing the ghostly chi in the surroundings to melt like snow under the scorching sun. Zhao Fu raised the seraph sword, and a 6-winged seraph appeared behind him, giving off a holy white light. The seraph's sword continuously trembled and gave off a brilliant sword light. Boom! Zhao Fu slashed out, sending out a massive white sword light that sent the ghost monkey flying back and heavily crashing to the ground. A gash appeared on the ghost monkey's armor, and ghostly chi flowed out, causing the ghost monkey's aura to weaken as if it had been heavily injured. The seraph sword was much easier to use. Holy light energy could suppress ghosts, and Zhao Fu should have used the seraph sword long ago. Arg! The ghost monkey roared as it stood up. Zhao Fu did not give it a chance and rushed up, slashing out again. The heavily injured ghost monkey was once again heavily injured, and in the end its throat was pierced by Zhao Fu's sword and it fell to the ground, dead. Its body dissipated into ghostly chi, but it left behind 4 items. The first 2 items were a ghost treasure bag and a complete gold-grade city god stone. Zhao Fu already knew about these 2 items, so there was no need to explain them. What Zhao Fu was curious about was the third item. It was a square seal that was slightly larger than the Ghost Commander seal. It was also made of gray jade and gave off a chilling aura. However, there was a ghost flood dragon carved on it, and it was incredibly exquisite. The ghost flood dragon seemed to have a life of its own, and it gave off an evil and savage aura. Ghost Marquis Seal. A Ghost Marquis Seal that represents the ruler of a Een area. It contains Ghost Marquis Chi, and it is a treasure that commands the underworld. It is formed from boundless Een Chi, and it can command 1 million ghost soldiers to serve it in conquering the underworld. The Ghost Marquis Seal was evidently more powerful than the Ghost Commander Seal. Firstly, the might it gave off and the quality of the ghostly chi was more powerful than the Ghost Commander Seal. Moreover, the Ghost Marquis Seal had an innate advantage that suppressed the Ghost Commander Seal. Moreover, the Ghost Marquis Seal could command 1 million ghost soldiers, which was 10 times more powerful than the Ghost Commander Seal. It was equivalent to 10 Ghost Commander Seals. The final item was a tombstone that was 6 meters tall and 1.5 meters wide. It was made of a tough rock and gave off traces of ghostly chi. It gave off an oppressive aura, and there were 3 words engraved on it: Marquis Yan's Tomb. Ghost Marquis Tombstone, the tombstone of a Marquis. It has absorbed a large amount of Een Chi and Killing Chi to form a treasure. It has a natural ability to absorb Een Chi and Killing Chi, and it also has a Ghost Marquis domain. The ghost soldiers here will obtain even greater power. Zhao Fu couldn't help but feel delighted because he had wanted to create ghost soldiers. This Ghost Marquis tombstone had the ability to gather Een Chi and Killing Chi, and it also had the Ghost Marquis domain. The ghost soldiers here would definitely be more powerful than ordinary ghost soldiers. With the Ghost Marquis tombstone, Zhao Fu would naturally nurture even more powerful ghost soldiers to help Qin sweep across the world. Chapter 8:17. At that moment, Zhao Fu smiled as he stood in front of the exchange stone steel. He had obtained enough ghost points to exchange for the final profession, and seeing that the ghost god soldier had not been taken yet, Zhao Fu was naturally quite happy. After choosing to exchange for the ghost god soldier, a gray profession change stone steel appeared in front of Zhao Fu. Now that the 3 professions were in Qin City, Zhao Fu felt much more at ease. However, tomorrow was the second stage of the Divine Fish Festival in the Fish Spirit World. During this festival, one could exchange for special cities, which were the Celestial City, Sword Mountain, and Holy God City. Zhao Fu really wanted these 3 cities, so he couldn't relax during the Ghost Festival. He had to continue working hard and prepare enough Divine Fish points for tomorrow's Ghost Festival. The only thing that Zhao Fu was worried about was that the Ghost Festival was a group event, and people of the same faction could trade with each other. However, the Divine Fish Festival was an individual event, and Divine Fish points could not be traded. Zhao Fu wondered how Ghost points and Divine Fish points could be exchanged. Now, Zhao Fu had all of Qin City's Ghost points, and if he converted them into Divine Fish points, even if the ratio was 10, 1. Zhao Fu would be able to easily take down the 3 cities. Zhao Fu was worried that he wouldn't be able to convert all of his ghost points into divine fish points. That was most likely the case. However many ghost points Zhao Fu obtained, he would be able to convert them into divine fish points, and the ghost points that others gave him would be useless. That was most likely the case, as the ghost points required to exchange for 3 cities were simply too low. The second stage of the Divine Fish Festival, the Fish Spirit World, was most likely an individual event. Zhao Fu felt that he needed to kill more ghosts to obtain more ghost points. That way, he would be safer. After exchanging for his profession, Zhao Fu returned to the Great Wall and started to kill ghosts. Time passed in the blink of an eye, and soon, it was 7 p.m. again. The sky was still dark and gloomy, and after another round of battles, Zhao Fu's body was slightly injured because he had used all of his strength to kill the ghost. Over the past 10 or so hours, Zhao Fu had killed a total of 136 ghost generals, 18 ghost commanders, and 5 ghost marquises. There were countless other ghosts, making it impossible to count them all. As such, the ghost points he obtained were quite shocking. In actuality, killing a ghost marquis gave him 10 million ghost points. However, the number of ghost monkeys was still relatively small, and their strength was valiant, so it wasn't easy to kill them. At this time, Zhao Fu sensed something. He looked up at the sky and saw a gray cloud moving towards Qin with a huge gloomy aura. Rumble, a massive explosion sounded out, causing the ground to tremble. Ghost soldiers wearing ghostly armor and holding ghostly weapons rushed towards Great Qin. Of course, there were other ghosts as well, and they formed a massive wave that gave off a shocking aura. What caught Zhao Fu's attention was that behind the wave of ghosts, there was a king's chariot. This chariot was pulled by 9 soul horses, and there was a person sitting on top of the chariot. This person was wearing a grayish-gold-black dragon robe and had a crown on his head. There was a ghost sword at his waist, and he gave off a king's aura. He was incredibly noble and terrifying, causing countless people to feel fear. The other ghosts instinctively treated him with respect. It's definitely a ghost king ghost. Apart from this ghost king, there were also 4 ghost marquises, many ghost commanders, and ghost generals. Zhao Fu chose to deal with the ghost king, while Bai Qi and Gunia dealt with the ghost marquises. Because it was likely that they would end in a draw, Zhao Fu sent some city lords to support them. The others dealt with the ghost generals and ghost commanders. Now, Qin had 1,400 or so city lords, which was much more powerful than the other side, so there was no need to worry too much. The ghost gate once again opened, and its massive mouth exploded out with a shocking attractive force, devouring all ghosts. Zhao Fu took out the seraph sword and slashed out with a searing sword light towards the Ghost King. The Ghost King drew the ghost soldier at its waist and met Zhao Fu's attack. Boom! The searing white light and eerie ghostly qi collided, resulting in a shocking explosion. A terrifying shockwave blasted out, and all of the ghostly qi in the surrounding 10,000 kilometers seemed to be wiped out. A region without ghostly qi appeared, and the dark clouds also disappeared. Because of the massive shockwave, both sides were forced back 100 meters, and Zhao Fu's expression became incredibly serious. This Ghost King's power definitely surpassed that of the aquatic beast king. Xing! A clear sword hum sounded out as the Ghost King's gaze became cold and gave off an eerie killing intent. It slashed out with its sword, causing massive amounts of ghostly qi to flow out and turn into a ferocious ghost dragon that shot towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu continuously sent his power into the seraph sword, causing it to continuously tremble and give off a clear sword hum. Rays of blinding white light shined out, illuminating the surroundings, and a shocking holy light energy was released. Roar! The ghost dragon opened its evil mouth and gave off a terrifying aura as it roared and rushed at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu slashed out, and a blinding sword of light seemed to be able to tear apart space. A searing white sword light slashed out, cutting the ghost dragon in half from head to tail. Zhao Fu's eyes widened, and he looked down at the ghost dragon. However, the two halves of the ghost dragon did not dissipate, and they instead turned into two waves of ghostly qi that slammed towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu had not expected this and was sent flying. Zhao Fu stabilized his body in the air, and a trace of blood leaked out of his lip. The Ghost King once again attacked, and its sword gave off a terrifying sword light as it slashed towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu dodged to the side, avoiding this attack, and the golden pupil in his left eye stared at the Ghost King as it started to spin. Immediately, countless chains shot out from the space around the Ghost King, and there were over 10,000 of them. This gave the Ghost King a big fright, and it roared as a powerful aura exploded out. The Ghost King spun its sword, and an extremely sharp gray sword ring slashed out. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of metal clanging could be heard as the countless chains shooting towards the Ghost King were instantly cut into pieces by the sharp sword ring and fell to the ground. However, at that moment, a figure suddenly appeared behind the Ghost King and slashed out with its sword. A searing white light exploded out, and the Ghost King was slashed back to the ground like a meteor, opening up a 100-meter-wide crater in the ground. This caused the ground to tremble, and the shock waves madly blasted out. Sand and pebbles were sent flying, and trees vigorously swayed. As Zhao Fu and the Ghost King fought, the 6 1,000-meter-tall figures gave off heaven-toppling ghostly qi. The massive might they gave off caused all living creatures to feel terror, and it felt as if space itself was going to be torn apart. Things that did not belong to this world had actually appeared in this world. The 6 massive beings seemed to sense something and walked in a certain direction. One of the massive beings passed by a system main city and stretched out its hand, crushing a city lord. This city lord was as weak as an ant. Boom! You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.